Victoria Hale stood in her corner office bathroom at 3 in the afternoon, staring at two pink lines that would destroy everything she'd built. The pregnancy test trembled in her hands, not from fear of the baby, but from the knowledge that its father sat 30 feet away in the project meeting she'd just abandoned. Lucas Reed, her most trusted project manager, her employee. The man whose voice still echoed in her memory from one reckless night 3 months ago when titles didn't matter and consequences felt impossibly distant. Now those consequences had a heartbeat, and the secret pressed against her ribs like a scream she couldn't release. Before we dive into this story of hidden truth, impossible choices, and the kind of love that threatens to unravel everything, I want to invite you on this journey with me. If you're ready to discover how one night can change two lives forever, stay with me until the very end. And please hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now let's begin where secrets start to crack and control becomes just another illusion. The architecture of lies, Victoria had learned, required the same precision as the buildings her firm designed, every beam calculated, every stress point reinforced, every weakness hidden behind beautiful facades. She'd spent 12 years constructing her reputation as the youngest CEO in Chicago's competitive commercial architecture scene, 12 years of sacrificing softness for strength, vulnerability for victory, anything resembling need for the armor of absolute competence. The armor was cracking. Victoria pressed her forehead against the cool mirror of her private bathroom, the positive pregnancy test now buried beneath tissues in the small waste bin, as if hiding the evidence could somehow reverse reality. Her reflection stared back, pale beneath expertly applied makeup, dark circles barely concealed, designer suit tailored to perfection but hanging slightly looser than it had a month ago. 3 months, 12 weeks, 84 days since the corporate retreat in Wisconsin, where everything she'd carefully controlled had slipped through her fingers like water. She could still feel the bonfire's heat on her face, taste the single glass of wine she'd allowed herself, hear the laughter of her employees, finally relaxed, finally seeing her as something approaching human instead of the ice queen who approved their vacation requests and critiqued their renderings with surgical precision. And Lucas. God. Lucas Reed with his quiet smile and those eyes that saw too much, sitting across the fire telling stories that made everyone laugh. His daughter Emily's latest kindergarten adventure involving a volcano made of toothpaste and baking soda that had apparently required professional carpet cleaning. She has your problem-solving skills, Victoria had said, the wine loosening her tongue just enough to be dangerous. The execution just needs work. His laugh had been warm, surprised. Did Victoria Hale just make a joke? I make jokes, she'd defended, though everyone within earshot had looked equally shocked. You make cutting observations that occasionally contain humor, Lucas corrected, but his tone held no criticism. It's different. The evening had blurred after that, more conversation, the crowd thinning as people drifted to their cabins, until somehow it was just the two of them and a dying fire, and words that felt safer in darkness. She'd told him things she never shared, how her father's firm had collapsed when she was 23, how she'd rebuilt it from ashes and debt, how every success felt like outrunning ghosts. He'd shared the story of his wife's death 4 years ago, how Emily kept him tethered to joy when grief felt like drowning, how single parenthood meant every decision carried double weight. You're not what I expected, Victoria had admitted, watching sparks rise into the Wisconsin darkness. Neither are you, Lucas had replied, and the space between them had felt electric, dangerous, impossible to navigate. She didn't remember who moved first. She remembered his hand in her hair, her back against the cabin wall, the desperate hunger of two people who'd been alone too long and careful too long and tired of pretending they didn't want something real. One night, one reckless, beautiful, catastrophic night. The bathroom door's knock made Victoria flinch. Ms. Hale? Her assistant Jennifer's voice carried professional concern. The Richardson team is waiting in conference room A. They've been there for 10 minutes. Victoria straightened, muscle memory taking over. She checked her reflection with the clinical efficiency of someone who'd learned to hide everything that mattered. Lipstick reapplied, hair smoothed, expression neutral. The trembling in her hands forced into stillness through sheer will. "I'll be right there," she called, her voice steady, authoritative, betraying nothing. She emerged from her office into the glass-walled corridor of Hale and Morrison architecture, the firm she'd dragged back from bankruptcy and transformed into one of Chicago's premier commercial design houses. Below, the main floor buzzed with afternoon energy. Architects hunched over drafting tables, junior designers gesturing at computer screens, the controlled chaos of creation that she'd orchestrated and commanded. Lucas stood near the scale model of the Richardson Project, their biggest commission in 3 years, a mixed-use development that would define the city's waterfront for the next generation. He was explaining something to a junior architect, his hand gesturing to illustrate a point about structural load, and Victoria's step faltered. She'd been avoiding him for 3 months. Ever since she'd woken in her own cabin that morning, alone, her body aching with the memory of his hands and her mind already constructing the walls that would make them strangers again. She'd left Wisconsin early, cited urgent business, and returned to Chicago with the retreat filed away as a mistake that would never be mentioned or repeated. Except her body had decided to keep receipts. Lucas looked up as she approached, and for one terrible second their eyes met. His expression shifted, concern flickering across his features before he masked it. She watched him notice what she'd been hiding, the exhaustion, the pallor, the slight change in how she carried herself. "Victoria," he said, her first name sounding strange and intimate in the professional space. He almost never used it at the office. "Are you feeling all right?" "Fine," she said, the lie automatic and sharp. "Just busy. The Richardson presentation needs to be perfect." "It is perfect," Lucas assured her, but his gaze lingered. "You've been working too hard." "That's literally my job description. Even you need to breathe occasionally." The concern in his voice made her throat tight. This was the problem with Lucas Reed. He noticed. He cared. He looked at her like she was a person instead of a position, and right now she needed him to be nothing but an employee. Because the alternative was terrifying. "The meeting," she said curtly, moving past him toward the conference room, feeling his eyes follow her. The Richardson presentation went flawlessly because Victoria Hale didn't allow for any other outcome. She walked the clients through renderings and models, explained load calculations and environmental impact assessments, answered questions with the kind of comprehensive knowledge that had built her reputation. She was brilliant, commanding, utterly in control. She also excused herself twice to vomit quietly in the bathroom, managing both times to return before anyone noticed her absence. By the time the clients left with signed contracts and enthusiastic handshakes, Victoria's hands were shaking again. She stood at her office window watching Chicago stretch out below her. Millions of lives, millions of secrets, a city that kept its truths buried beneath concrete and steel. Her phone buzzed, a reminder for her doctor's appointment tomorrow morning. The one she'd scheduled under a fake name at a clinic across town where none of her colleagues would recognize her. Knock, knock. Victoria turned to find Lucas in her doorway, jacket over his arm, briefcase in hand. It was past 6. The office had emptied while she'd been lost in thought. "Congratulations on the Richardson contract," he said. "Though I think we both knew they'd sign the moment you walked in. You have that effect." "It's called competence," Victoria replied. "I recommend it." Lucas smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Can we talk?" "About the project timeline? Send me your updated schedule by—" "About you," he interrupted gently. "Victoria, you're not okay. I've watched you for 3 months now, and something's wrong." Her heart hammered. "I'm fine." "You're exhausted. You've lost weight. You disappear during meetings, and you won't look at me for more than 2 seconds at a time." He stepped into her office, closing the door behind him. "Talk to me. Please." The please nearly broke her. Lucas Reed didn't beg, didn't push, didn't demand. He just offered steady presence and waited, which was somehow worse than any confrontation. "There's nothing to talk about," Victoria said, her voice ice. "Whatever you think you're seeing, you're mistaken." "Am I mistaken about Wisconsin too?" The words hung between them like smoke. Victoria's carefully constructed walls trembled. "Wisconsin was a mistake." "Was it?" Lucas asked quietly. "Because I've been trying to figure out if I should apologize or if I should tell you that it was the most real thing I've felt in 4 years. I've been trying to decide if you're avoiding me because you regret it or because you're as scared as I am about what it meant." "It meant nothing," Victoria said, the lie tasting like poison. "It was one night. It's over." Then why can't you look at me when you say that? She forced herself to meet his eyes, to hold his gaze with all the authority she'd weaponized over a decade of climbing. Because I'm your boss, Lucas. Because what happened was inappropriate and unprofessional. Because I need you to be my project manager, not whatever you think this is. Something flickered in his expression. Hurt, maybe, or resignation. And if I told you I've been falling for you since long before Wisconsin? That watching you command a room, seeing the way your mind works, knowing the person behind all that control, that it matters to me? Victoria's breath caught. The baby growing inside her seemed to pulse with the weight of truth she couldn't speak. Then I'd say you're confusing respect with something else, she managed. And I'd remind you that I have a company to run, a reputation to maintain, and no space in my life for complications. Is that what I am? A complication? Yes, Victoria said, hating herself for the word, for the way his expression shuddered. I'm sorry if I gave you a different impression, but us, it can't happen. It won't happen. Lucas stood silent for a long moment, and Victoria watched him process the rejection, watched him rebuild his own walls. When he spoke again, his voice was professional, distant. Understood. I'll have the timeline to you by tomorrow morning. He turned toward the door, paused. For what it's worth, I think you're lying. To me, maybe. Definitely to yourself. But I'll respect your decision. The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded like an ending. Victoria sank into her chair, her hand instinctively moving to her still flat stomach. The baby, their baby, rolled inside her like a secret that would eventually demand to be told. She had maybe 2 months before her body betrayed what her mouth refused to admit. 2 months to figure out how to tell the man she'd just pushed away that he was going to be a father again. 2 months to decide if she was brave enough to want him back. The next morning, Victoria sat in Dr. Sarah Chen's examination room at the Streeterville Women's Clinic, staring at the ultrasound image that proved her home test hadn't been some stress-induced hallucination. There it was, a tiny blob with a flickering heartbeat, barely 12 weeks along, already rearranging her entire existence. Everything looks healthy, Dr. Chen said, her tone professionally warm. Blood pressure's a bit high, which concerns me given your stress levels. We'll need to monitor that. Are you eating regularly? Victoria thought about the crackers she'd been surviving on, the meals she couldn't stomach. I'm trying. Try harder, Dr. Chen said bluntly. This baby needs nutrients, and so do you. I'm prescribing prenatal vitamins, and I want you to see a nutritionist. Also, she fixed Victoria with a knowing look. You need to reduce stress. I know you're a CEO, but your body doesn't care about your title. It cares about keeping this pregnancy viable. I understand. Do you? Because you look like you haven't slept in a month, and your assistant told my receptionist you'd be using a fake name for the appointment. Victoria, if you're going through this alone, that's your choice, but isolating yourself isn't healthy. Victoria's throat tightened. The father doesn't know yet. Planning to tell him? I don't know, Victoria admitted, the first honest thing she'd said in weeks. It's complicated. Dr. Chen's expression softened. It usually is, but that baby won't care about complicated in about 6 months. You should think about building a support system, whatever that looks like for you. Victoria left the clinic with a folder full of information, prescriptions, and a follow-up appointment in 4 weeks. She sat in her car for 10 minutes, staring at the ultrasound image, trying to reconcile the abstract concept of pregnancy with this actual, visible evidence of life. Her phone rang. Jennifer. There's a problem with the Morrison building permits, her assistant said without preamble. The city's flagging our environmental impact assessment. Lucas is here, and he says we need you now. Of course, because the universe had a sense of humor. 20 minutes later, Victoria stood in her conference room surrounded by her senior team, Lucas, her partner James Morrison, their lead environmental consultant, and a very nervous junior architect who'd apparently missed a critical calculation. Walk me through it, Victoria commanded, her voice steady despite the nausea rolling through her stomach. Lucas took the lead, spreading blueprints across the table. The city's rejecting our water runoff calculations. They're saying our estimates are 30% too low, which means the current design exceeds allowable environmental impact. How did we miss this? Victoria demanded. The junior architect paled. I I used the wrong coefficient in the model. I'm so sorry, Ms. Hale, Apologies don't fix the problem, Victoria cut him off. Solutions do. What are our options? James Morrison, her father's old friend and the only person who'd believed in her enough to rebuild the firm together, rubbed his temples. We can redesign the drainage system, but that's 3 weeks of work and we're already behind schedule. Or, Lucas interjected, leaning over the blueprints, we could implement a green roof system that handles the excess runoff while actually improving our environmental rating. It'd add cost up front, but would save on mechanical cooling and potentially qualify us for city green building incentives. Victoria studied the blueprints, her mind racing through calculations. Lucas was right. It was elegant, innovative, the kind of solution that turned problems into advantages. How fast can we model it? She asked. 2 days if we commit full resources, Lucas said. I can have my team work overtime. Do it, Victoria decided. And I want to see preliminary calculations by tomorrow morning. If this works, it might actually improve the project. It'll work, Lucas said with quiet confidence, and their eyes met across the table. For a moment, the professional mask slipped. She saw the man who'd held her that night in Wisconsin, and the baby inside her seemed to pulse with the truth she couldn't speak. Then she looked away, and the moment shattered. The meeting dispersed, leaving Victoria alone with James. You look terrible, he observed with the bluntness of a 70-year-old man who'd earned the right to honesty. What's going on? Just tired, Victoria said automatically. Bull. I've known you since you were 23 years old, watching your father's firm collapse around his hospital bed. I've seen you tired. This is different. Victoria sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. James had been there for everything, her father's illness, the bankruptcy, the slow rebuild. He was the closest thing she had to family. If I tell you something, she said quietly, can it stay between us? James sat across from her, his weathered face gentle. Always. I'm pregnant. The words felt surreal leaving her mouth, making it real in a way the test and the ultrasound hadn't. James was quiet for a long moment. Does the father know? No. Planning to tell him? Victoria laughed without humor. Everyone keeps asking me that. Because it's the obvious question, James said mildly. Who is he? Victoria hesitated, then figured if she was confessing, she might as well confess completely. Lucas. James's eyebrows rose slightly, his only visible reaction. Lucas Reed, your project manager. The single father with the kindergartner. Yes. Does he know you have feelings for him? Victoria's head snapped up. I never said, Victoria, I've watched you watch him for 2 years. I've seen the way you soften when he talks about his daughter, the way you listen differently when he speaks. You're a brilliant woman, but you're not as opaque as you think when it comes to him. Victoria felt tears prick her eyes, a hormonal betrayal that horrified her. It doesn't matter what I feel. He's my employee, and after last night, he probably hates me anyway. What happened last night? She told him about Lucas's confession in her office, about her cold rejection, about the walls she'd built because she didn't know how to be vulnerable without losing everything. James listened without interruption, then leaned back in his chair. Your father, he said slowly, was a brilliant architect and a terrible businessman. He built beautiful buildings and nearly destroyed himself trying to maintain an image of perfection. When he got sick, he wouldn't tell anyone until he was too weak to hide it. Pride killed him as much as cancer did. I'm not my father, Victoria said defensively. No, you're stronger, smarter, more capable. James's eyes were kind but unyielding. But you inherited his fear of appearing weak, and that baby growing inside you is going to demand a level of vulnerability your father never learned. The question is whether you're brave enough to learn it. Victoria's hand moved unconsciously to her stomach. I don't know how to be both things. Strong leader and this. Maybe you don't have to choose, James suggested. Maybe strength looks different than you think. Lucas seems like a good man. He deserves to know. And you deserve to stop carrying everything alone. After James left, Victoria sat in the darkening conference room, watching the city lights begin to glow. Her phone buzzed, a text from Lucas with the updated project timeline, professional and distant, exactly what she'd demanded. She typed a response 3 times and deleted it 3 times. finally settled on, "Received. Thank you." His reply came immediately. "Just doing my job." The distance in those words hurt more than she'd expected. 3 weeks passed in a careful dance of avoidance. Victoria buried herself in work, masking morning sickness with strategic meeting schedules and keeping crackers in her desk drawer. The Morrison building redesign progressed brilliantly. Lucas's green roof system had not only solved the environmental problem, but had attracted media attention and additional clients interested in sustainable design. She should have been celebrating. Instead, she was standing in her bathroom at 2 a.m., crying over a commercial for paper towels because the cartoon bear family looked so happy. Hormones, she told herself. Just hormones and exhaustion and the weight of secrets. But she knew it was more than that. It was the way Lucas maintained perfect professional distance, the way his eyes skated past her in meetings, the way he'd stopped asking if she was okay because she'd made it clear the answer was none of his business. It was the growing life inside her and the terrifying knowledge that soon, hiding would be impossible. Victoria was reviewing contracts when Jennifer knocked on her office door, her expression uncertain. "Ms. Hale, there's a woman here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's personal. Her name is Rachel. She's Lucas Reed's sister." Victoria's stomach dropped. "Send her in." Rachel Reed was petite, dark-haired, with the same kind eyes as her brother. She looked nervous, clutching a coffee cup like a lifeline. "Ms. Hale, I'm sorry to just show up, but I didn't know how else to do this," Rachel began. "I'm Lucas's sister. I watch his daughter Emily after school." "Is something wrong with Lucas?" Victoria asked, alarm cutting through professional composure. "No, he's fine. Emily's fine. It's just—" Rachel hesitated. "Look, Lucas would kill me if he knew I was here, but I'm worried about him. He's been different since the retreat, distant, working crazy hours. And Emily asked me last week why her daddy seems sad all the time." Victoria's chest tightened. "I'm not sure why you're telling me this." "Because Emily also told me about the pretty boss lady her daddy talks about sometimes, about how smart you are, how you make buildings that touch the sky. She drew you a picture once, after Lucas brought her to the office holiday party. She put you in a castle because bosses live in castles." Victoria remembered that party, remembered Lucas's daughter with paint on her hands and wonder in her eyes, asking a million questions about blueprints and protractors. "Rachel, I appreciate your concern for your brother, but he's in love with you," Rachel interrupted. "Maybe he doesn't say it. Maybe he's trying to pretend he isn't. But I've known Lucas his whole life. After Maria died, I thought he'd never let himself feel anything again. But he talks about you like you hung the moon, and now he won't talk about you at all, which means something happened." Victoria stood, defensive walls rising. "Your brother is my employee. Whatever you think you're seeing, I'm seeing a single dad who's been surviving instead of living for 4 years, who finally found someone who made him feel again, and who's been gently heartbroken for 3 weeks. Rachel's voice was firm but kind. "I'm also seeing a woman who looks like she hasn't slept in a month and who my brother watches when he thinks no one's looking. So I'm asking, woman to woman, boss to sister, what happened?" The truth clawed at Victoria's throat, desperate for release, but she swallowed it down, maintained control. "Nothing happened," she said quietly, "and nothing can happen. I'm sorry if your brother's been upset, but my personal life isn't— You're pregnant." Victoria's words died. Rachel's expression was gentle, knowing. "I've had 3 kids," Rachel continued softly. "I recognize the signs. The crackers in your desk drawer that Jennifer mentioned. The way you're holding yourself. The exhaustion that's different from just being busy." She paused. "Is it Lucas's?" Victoria could have lied, should have lied. Instead, she found herself sinking into her chair, the weight of secrets suddenly too heavy. "Yes," she whispered, "but he doesn't know, and you can't tell him." Rachel sat across from her, her expression shifting from suspicion to understanding. "How far along?" "Almost 16 weeks. And you've been hiding this? Alone?" Rachel's voice held no judgment, only concern. "Victoria, can I call you Victoria? You can't do this by yourself." "I've done everything by myself," Victoria said, her voice breaking slightly. "I don't know how to do it any other way." "But you don't have to. Lucas, he's the best father I know. When Maria got sick, he held everything together for Emily. He'd want to be there for you, For this baby. That's the problem, Victoria said, tears finally escaping despite her best efforts. I pushed him away because I was scared. I told him we were a mistake, and now I'm carrying his child, and I don't know how to tell him that I lied about everything except being terrified. Rachel reached across the desk, taking Victoria's hand. Start with the truth. Just the plain, simple truth. Lucas doesn't need perfect. He needs honest. After Rachel left, Victoria sat in her office watching the sun set over Chicago, one hand on her stomach where the baby was beginning to make its presence undeniable. The truth. Such a simple concept, such an impossible demand. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lucas. Morrison Building green roof approved by City Council. Thought you'd want to know. She stared at the message, at the professional distance in those words, at the careful space he'd built because she'd demanded it. Then she typed, "Can we talk? Tomorrow. Please. Not about work." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, my office, 8 a.m. Victoria set down her phone, her heart hammering. Tomorrow morning, she would tell Lucas Reed that their one night had consequences, that the baby growing inside her was his, that she'd been lying about not wanting him, about not feeling things, about being fine alone. Tomorrow morning, she would choose courage over control. Tonight, she would be terrified. Victoria arrived at the office at 7:30 a.m., too anxious to wait. She'd practiced what to say a dozen times, rehearsed conversations in her mirror, tried to script the perfect words, but every version sounded wrong. Too clinical, too emotional, too casual, too formal. There was no good way to say, "I'm pregnant, it's yours, and I've been in love with you for longer than I want to admit." Lucas was already at his desk when she knocked, surrounded by blueprints and coffee cups that suggested he'd been there for hours. He looked up, surprise flickering across his features. "You're early," he said. "So are you." Emily had a sleepover at Rachel's. Couldn't sleep. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "You wanted to talk?" Victoria closed the door behind her, and Lucas's eyebrows rose slightly, but he said nothing. She sat, her carefully pressed suit suddenly feeling like armor that wouldn't protect her from what came next. "I need to tell you something," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "And I need you to let me say it all before you respond." Lucas set down his pen, his full attention on her. "Okay." Victoria took a breath. Another. Then jumped before she could stop herself. "I'm pregnant, 16 weeks. The baby is yours. From Wisconsin. I know this is shocking, and I should have told you sooner, but I didn't know how. I was scared. I'm still scared. Not of the baby. I want this baby, but of what it means, of how it changes everything, of—" her voice cracked, "of how I lied to you 3 weeks ago when I said Wisconsin was a mistake and that you were just a complication." Lucas went very still. His expression was unreadable, and Victoria forced herself to continue. "The truth is that night mattered. You matter. You've mattered for a long time, and I've been terrified of that because I don't know how to be the person I am at work, and also be someone who needs things. Who wants things. Who—" Tears were streaming down her face now, all composure abandoned. "Who's been falling for you since the first time you stood up to me in a meeting and told me my design was functionally brilliant but emotionally cold?" She stopped, breathless, exposed, waiting for Lucas to say something, anything. He stood slowly, moved around his desk, and knelt in front of her chair so they were eye level. His hands cupped her face, thumbs wiping away tears. "Breathe," he said softly. "Just breathe for a second." Victoria tried to obey, her breath hitching. "You're pregnant," Lucas said, his voice filled with wonder. "With my baby." "Yes." "And you want to keep it?" "Yes." "And you've been dealing with this alone for 16 weeks. Victoria nodded, unable to speak. Lucas's expression shifted through a dozen emotions: shock, concern, something that looked like joy, then determination. Okay, we can work with this. First question, are you healthy? Is the baby healthy?" "Yes, both fine. Just tired and scared," Lucas finished. "I understand scared. When Maria was pregnant with Emily, I was terrified every single day. But Victoria, you don't have to be scared alone, not anymore." "I pushed you away." Victoria whispered. I hurt you. Why aren't you angry? Lucas's smile was gentle, sad. Because I know why you did it. I've watched you for 2 years, remember? I've seen how hard you work to never need anyone, to never show weakness. I've also seen the person behind that armor, the one who stays late to mentor junior architects, who donated her Christmas bonus to the children's hospital where my wife died, who remembers every employee's birthday. You're not the ice queen everyone thinks you are. You're just scared of being seen. I'm terrified, Victoria admitted, of being a mother, of running a company while pregnant, of people judging me, of us, of letting me in, Lucas finished. I know, but here's what I need you to understand. He took her hands in his. I meant what I said 3 weeks ago. I've been falling for you. Not for my boss, not for Victoria Hale, CEO. For you. The woman who gets excited about unconventional structural solutions, who tears up during those building documentaries you think no one knows you watch, who's brilliant and difficult and kind when she thinks no one's looking. Victoria's chest felt too tight. This could ruin both our careers, the gossip alone. Let them gossip, Lucas said firmly. I've spent 4 years caring too much about what people think, about not disrupting Emily's stability, about playing it safe. I'm done with safe. I want real. And this, he placed his hand gently on her stomach. This is real. We are real. What about Emily? Victoria asked. How do we explain to a 5-year-old that her father is having a baby with his boss? Lucas laughed, the sound breaking tension. Emily's been asking for a sibling since she learned that babies exist. She'll be thrilled. As for the boss part, he sobered, we'll figure it out. Maybe I transfer to a different project. Maybe you promote me so we're equal partners. Maybe we just deal with the awkwardness of dating inside a company you own. But we figure it out together. Not you alone, carrying everything. Victoria felt something unlock in her chest. Some tight, frightened thing she'd been holding for so long she'd forgotten it was there. I don't know how to do this, she confessed. Be vulnerable. Be with someone. Be imperfect, Lucas suggested. Join the club. I'm a single dad who feeds his daughter cereal for dinner twice a week and whose idea of romance is remembering to put the toilet seat down. We're both going to mess this up, but at least we can mess it up together. Victoria laughed through tears, the sound surprising her. That's a terrible romantic speech. I'm an architect, not a poet, Lucas said, smiling. But I mean every word. Victoria Hale, mother of my child, woman I'm completely in love with. Will you let me be part of this? All of it? The answer should have been complicated, should have required analysis, planning, consideration of all variables. Instead, it was simple. Yes, Victoria whispered. Lucas leaned forward, his forehead touching hers. Thank you for telling me, for trusting me, for getting pregnant after one night like a reckless teenager, Victoria supplied wryly. For giving me a second chance at a family I thought I'd lost, Lucas corrected. Emily's going to have a sibling. I'm going to have, he paused, vulnerable. You, if you'll have me. Victoria kissed him, soft and certain, tasting salt from her own tears and coffee from his morning routine and relief that felt like coming home. When they pulled apart, Lucas was smiling. So, logistics. We tell HR, probably James Morrison since he's your partner. We deal with potential gossip. We figure it out as we go, Victoria finished. For once in my life, I'm going to just figure it out as I go. Lucas stood, pulling her up with him, his arms wrapping around her. Victoria leaned into his chest, listening to his heartbeat, feeling their baby between them like a promise. One more thing, Lucas said against her hair. You need to stop working 80-hour weeks. Doctor's orders, I'm guessing. How did you... Rachel came to see me last night, Lucas admitted. Told me she thought you were pregnant, that I should talk to you. I told her she was crazy, that you would have told me. But she was right, wasn't she? Sisters usually are. Victoria pulled back. Your sister confronted you? Welcome to having family who meddles, Lucas said, grinning. Wait until you meet my mother. She's going to lose her mind when she finds out she's getting another grandchild. The word family echoed in Victoria's mind. Foreign, terrifying, unexpectedly warm. I should probably meet them before I start showing, Victoria said. I'm already at 16 weeks. In a few more, hiding this won't be possible. Then we don't hide, Lucas said simply. We tell people. We deal with consequences. We keep building our lives just with a few adjustments. Victoria's phone buzzed. Jennifer with the morning schedule. 8 meetings, 3 conference calls, 2 site visits, the same relentless pace she'd maintained for years. I need to cut back, she realized aloud. I can't keep this schedule and be healthy. Delegate, Lucas suggested. You have good people. Trust them. Trust me. I can take more responsibility on the Morrison Building project. James can handle the financial oversight. You focus on the things only you can do and let the rest go. Letting go. Another concept that felt alien. But looking at Lucas, seeing the certainty in his eyes, feeling the baby move inside her like a tiny revolution against her carefully controlled world, maybe letting go was exactly what she needed. Okay, Victoria said, the word both surrender and strength. Okay, we do this together. Lucas kissed her forehead. Together. Starting with you eating actual breakfast instead of crackers, because my kid needs nutrients. Your kid? Our kid, he corrected, smiling, but I get partial credit for the genes. Victoria laughed, genuinely laughed, for what felt like the first time in months. The future stretched ahead, uncertain and complicated, and nothing like she'd planned. But standing in Lucas Reed's arms, their baby growing between them, Victoria Hale decided that maybe perfect plans were overrated. Maybe courage looked like admitting you couldn't do everything alone. Maybe strength was choosing to be vulnerable with the right person. And maybe, just maybe, love was worth risking everything she'd built. The secret was out. The truth was spoken. Now came the hard part, living it. The morning after Victoria's confession, she stood in James Morrison's office watching the 70-year-old man process information that would reshape their entire professional landscape. He sat behind his mahogany desk, the only piece salvaged from her father's original firm, his weathered hands folded, his expression unreadable. So you and Lucas, James said finally, his tone neutral. How long? Technically, 1 night 3 months ago, actually. Victoria's voice wavered. I think I've been falling for him since he told me the Henderson project design lacked soul and suggested we start over. James's lips twitched. That was 18 months ago. You fired him from that project. And promoted him 2 weeks later, Victoria countered. Because he was right. The design did lack soul. And now you're having his child. Hearing it stated so plainly made Victoria's knees weak. She sank into the leather chair across from James, her hand instinctively moving to her stomach. Yes. James was quiet for a long moment, studying her with eyes that had seen her at her worst. 23 years old, her father dying in a hospital bed, their firm drowning in debt and scandal. He'd been the only one who believed she could rebuild, who'd put his own reputation on the line to partner with her. Does Lucas know? James asked. I told him this morning. Victoria's throat tightened with emotion she still wasn't used to showing. He wants to be part of this, part of everything. And how do you feel about that? The question was simple, but the answer was complicated. Victoria had spent 12 years building walls, maintaining distance, proving she didn't need anyone. The idea of leaning on someone, of sharing responsibility, of being vulnerable, it terrified her almost as much as the pregnancy itself. I feel like I'm standing on a ledge, Victoria admitted quietly. Like if I let myself need him. If I trust this, everything could collapse. James leaned back in his chair, his expression softening. Your father used to say the same thing about your mother, that needing her felt dangerous. He never learned that needing someone isn't weakness, it's just being human. Don't make his mistakes, Victoria. What if the gossip destroys us professionally? What if people think I'm showing favoritism? What if you spend so much time worrying about what could go wrong that you miss what's going right? James interrupted gently. You're having a baby with a good man who loves you. That's not a crisis. That's a gift. Victoria blinked back tears. These damn hormones made everything feel raw. The board won't see it as a gift. They'll see it as a liability. Female CEO pregnant by her employee? The optics are terrible. Then we manage the optics, James said practically. We're architects, Victoria. We've spent our careers managing impossible structural problems. This is just another design challenge. We tell the board before the gossip starts. We're transparent about the relationship. We make adjustments to reporting structures if necessary. We show them that Hale and Morrison Architecture is run by professionals who can handle personal situations with the same competence we handle our projects. You make it sound simple. It's not simple, but it's also not impossible. James stood, moving to the window that overlooked the Chicago skyline. I'm 72 years old. I've been planning my retirement for 3 years, waiting for the right time. Maybe this is it. Maybe you buy out my shares, make Lucas a full partner, and restructure so you're no longer his direct supervisor. Problem solved. Victoria's heart lurched. James, I'm not pushing you out because I got pregnant. You're not pushing. I'm offering. He turned to face her, his smile genuine. I want to travel with my wife before we're too old to enjoy it. I want to see my grandchildren more than twice a year. And I want you to build the future of this firm with someone who shares your vision. Lucas is talented, innovative, and apparently stupid enough to love you despite your control issues. Sounds like partner material to me. You've been planning this, Victoria accused. I've been considering it, James corrected. Your situation just accelerated the timeline. We can announce it at the board meeting next month. My retirement, Lucas's promotion, your condition. Give everyone all the surprises at once. Victoria's mind raced through implications, restructuring plans, financial arrangements. But beneath the professional calculations, she felt something unexpected. Relief. If Lucas was her partner instead of her employee, the power dynamic that had made their relationship feel impossible would shift. They could be equals, building something together both professionally and personally. 1 month, Victoria said slowly. That gives us time to prepare the announcement, handle the legal paperwork, and, she swallowed hard, and tell Lucas he's about to become a partner in a major architecture firm while also becoming a father. The man's going to have an interesting month, James observed dryly. Victoria's phone buzzed, a text from Lucas. Emily wants to meet you. Dinner tonight? No pressure, but she's already planning what to name the baby. Despite everything, Victoria smiled. I have to meet his daughter tonight. She apparently has baby name suggestions. How old is Emily? 5. James laughed. This should be entertaining. Try not to terrify the child with contract negotiations. I don't negotiate with 5-year-olds. You might want to learn. From what I hear, they're tougher than most clients. After leaving James's office, Victoria returned to her own, staring at the text from Lucas. Meeting Emily felt monumental. This wasn't just dinner, it was stepping into Lucas's life, becoming part of his daughter's world, making their relationship real in ways that extended far beyond the two of them. She typed, "What does one wear to meet a 5-year-old critic?" Lucas's response came quickly. Emily prefers guests in princess dresses, but jeans are acceptable. She's not picky. I am, however, required to inform you that she will ask approximately 1 million questions and has strong opinions about pasta shapes. Victoria laughed despite her nerves. I can handle pasta-shaped discourse. We'll see. She's very passionate about rotini versus penne. It's serious business. Victoria spent the afternoon in meetings, her mind only half present as architects presented renderings and engineers explained load calculations. She caught herself touching her stomach during a conference call about the Richardson project, wondering if the baby could hear her voice, if it knew its mother was terrified and excited and completely unprepared for every aspect of what came next. At 5:30, she left the office, early by her usual standards, but still later than she'd intended. Lucas had texted his address in Lincoln Park, a neighborhood she knew was family-friendly and expensive enough to surprise her. Project managers made good salaries, but this area suggested either excellent financial planning or family money. The brownstone was charming, well-maintained, with window boxes that probably held flowers in spring. Victoria stood on the steps for a full minute before knocking, her heart hammering. Lucas opened the door, and the sight of him in jeans and a faded Northwestern t-shirt instead of his usual work attire made something in Victoria's chest tighten. This was Lucas off-duty, Lucas as a father, Lucas in his own space. "You came," he said, smiling. "You invited me." "I did. But I also know you're probably terrified, so I half expected a text canceling." He stepped aside, gesturing her in. "Fair warning, Emily has been vibrating with excitement since I told her about dinner. She thinks you're basically royalty." "I'm not royalty. You're her dad's boss who designed skyscrapers." Close enough. Lucas closed the door behind her, and Victoria took in the space. Hardwood floors scattered with toys, framed drawings clearly done by a child's hand, photographs covering the walls. It was lived in, loved in, nothing like her minimalist downtown condo. "Daddy, is she here?" a small voice called from deeper in the house. "She is," Lucas called back. "Come meet her." Emily Reed appeared in the hallway, and Victoria's breath caught. The little girl had Lucas's dark hair and eyes, but her face was delicate, pretty, lit up with excitement. She wore a purple dress with a tutu attached and carried what appeared to be a stuffed elephant. "Hi," Emily said shyly. "I'm Emily. This is Mr. Trunks." Victoria crouched down to Emily's level, grateful for all those years of reviewing junior architects' work with patience. "Hi, Emily. I'm Victoria. Mr. Trunks is very distinguished." "He's an elephant," Emily explained seriously. "They're very smart, almost as smart as people." "I've heard that. Elephants have excellent memories." Emily's eyes widened. "You know about elephants?" "I know a little about a lot of things. It's part of my job." "Daddy says you build buildings that touch the sky," Emily said, moving closer. "Is that true?" "Sometimes. Not quite the sky, but very tall." "Can I see one?" Lucas intervened gently. "Em, why don't we let Victoria sit down? She's had a long day." Emily grabbed Victoria's hand with complete trust, leading her toward the kitchen. "We're having spaghetti because Daddy says it's easy, and also I like it." "Do you like spaghetti?" "I do," Victoria said, charmed despite her nervousness. "Good, because we already made it." "Daddy, she likes spaghetti!" The kitchen was warm, filled with the smell of garlic and tomato sauce. A small table was set for 3, with Emily's seat marked by a booster and a plastic plate decorated with cartoon animals. Dinner was chaotic, in ways Victoria had never experienced. Emily talked nonstop, asking questions about buildings and Chicago, and whether Victoria had ever met any famous people, and why the sky was blue, and did Victoria know her daddy was the best daddy in the world. Lucas navigated it all with practiced ease, answering when Emily paused for breath, redirecting when questions got too personal, gently reminding his daughter about table manners when she talked with her mouth full. Victoria found herself relaxing, drawn into Emily's enthusiastic worldview, where everything was possible and adults existed primarily to answer questions and provide snacks. "Daddy says you have a baby in your tummy," Emily announced between bites of spaghetti, and Victoria nearly choked on her water. Lucas winced. We talked about letting Victoria bring that up when she was ready." "But she's here now, so she's ready," Emily reasoned with 5-year-old logic. "Can I see the baby?" "The baby's very small right now," Victoria explained, recovering. "Too small to see from outside." "When will it be big enough?" "In about 6 more months." Emily considered this. "That's a long time. I don't want to wait that long." "Unfortunately, babies don't care about our schedules," Lucas said dryly. "They take their time." "Is it a boy baby or a girl baby?" Emily demanded. "We don't know yet," Victoria admitted. "I want a sister," Emily declared. "Boys are boring, except Daddy. Daddy's not boring." "Thank you, sweetheart," Lucas said, amused. "If it's a sister, can I teach her things? Like how to draw and how to sing ABCs?" Victoria's throat tightened. Emily wasn't asking if she'd be a sister. She was already assuming it, planning for it, accepting this baby as part of her family with the easy certainty of childhood. "I think she'd love that," Victoria managed. "What if it's a brother?" "You could teach him too." Emily nodded, satisfied. "Okay, I'll teach the baby everything. Daddy, can Victoria see my room? I cleaned it mostly." After dinner, Victoria found herself being given a tour of Emily's room. Walls painted soft yellow, shelves full of books and toys, a small desk with art supplies organized with impressive care for a 5-year-old. Emily showed her drawings, explained her stuffed animal family hierarchy, and demonstrated how her nightlight made stars on the ceiling. Lucas watched from the doorway, his expression soft. "Victoria," Emily said seriously, holding up a crayon drawing of what might have been a building or possibly a rocket ship. "When the baby comes, will you still come to dinner?" The question hit Victoria harder than she'd expected. Emily wasn't just accepting the baby, she was accepting Victoria, claiming her as part of their world. "I'd like that very much," Victoria said quietly. Good, Emily said, satisfied, because Daddy's happier when you're here. He smiles more. After Emily's bedtime routine, which involved 3 stories, 2 songs, and extensive negotiation about whether Mr. Trunks needed his own blanket, Lucas and Victoria sat on his couch with tea, the house finally quiet. She likes you, Lucas said. She's wonderful. You've done an amazing job with her. I've done my best. Some days that feels like barely enough. Lucas set down his tea, turning to face Victoria. She lost her mother when she was 1. She doesn't remember Maria, which breaks my heart, but it also means she doesn't carry that grief the way I do. She just knows this is her family. Me, Rachel, my parents, and now... He placed his hand over Victoria's stomach. You, this baby. She's already made space for you. Victoria covered his hand with hers. I'm terrified of disappointing her. You won't. You don't know that. I don't know how to be a mother. I barely know how to be a person who needs things. You're learning, Lucas said gently. I've watched you these past few weeks. You're different, softer maybe, or just more willing to show what was always there. Victoria leaned against him, exhausted. James wants to retire. He suggested making you a partner, restructuring so we're equals instead of you reporting to me. Lucas went still. Partner? You'd have to buy shares, take on more responsibility, but it would solve the optics problem of us being together. And honestly, Victoria lifted her head to meet his eyes. You've earned it. You're brilliant, Lucas. You see possibilities I miss. You make me a better architect. You're serious. Completely. James has been planning retirement anyway. This just accelerates the timeline. We'd announce everything at next month's board meeting, his retirement, your promotion, our relationship, the pregnancy. Get all the surprises over with at once. Lucas stood, pacing. Victoria recognized the gesture. He did the same thing when working through complex design problems. That's a lot of change. Too much? No, just... He turned to face her. I need to make sure you're offering this because you want me as a partner, not because you feel obligated due to the baby. I want you as a partner, Victoria said firmly. I wanted that before Wisconsin, before the pregnancy. I just didn't know how to separate personal feelings from professional respect. Now I don't have to choose. Lucas sat back down, taking her hands. Okay, yes, I'm terrified, but yes, on one condition. What? You stop working 80-hour weeks, you delegate, you trust your team, trust me to carry more load, because I'm not watching you burn out while pregnant with our child. I'm trying, Victoria protested. Try harder. I mean it, Victoria. You left the office at 5:30 today, and Emily asked if you were sick because Daddy said you usually work until 8 or 9. A 5-year-old is worried about your work hours. That's a problem. Shame heated Victoria's face. I know. I don't know how to not be in control of everything. Start by giving me the Morrison building project completely. No checking my work, no second-guessing decisions. You trust me with partnership. Trust me with this. It should have been easy. It was one project out of dozens. But for Victoria, letting go felt like stepping off a cliff. What if something goes wrong? She asked. Then we fix it. Together, like partners do. Victoria took a shaky breath. Okay, Morrison Building is yours. I'll review final designs, but the day-to-day management is your responsibility. Lucas smiled. That wasn't so hard, was it? It was excruciating. You'll survive. He pulled her closer, his arm around her shoulders. We both will. Even when it's hard. Even when you want to micromanage everything because control feels safer than trust. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, Victoria's hand on her stomach where the baby was beginning to make tiny flutters that could have been movement or could have been her imagination. Lucas, she said quietly, what if I'm terrible at this? At being a mother? I don't have the instincts Emily has, that automatic love, that easy affection. What if I can't? Stop, Lucas interrupted gently. You're already loving this baby. I can see it in how you touch your stomach, how you've started eating better, how you downloaded 3 pregnancy apps last week. You noticed that? I notice everything about you, It's annoying sometimes, how much I notice. Lucas tilted her face up to meet his eyes. You don't have to be perfect, Victoria. You just have to show up. Love doesn't require instinct. It requires choice. Choosing every day to be present, to try, to care. You're already doing that. Victoria kissed him, soft and grateful, tasting tea and promises. I don't deserve you. Yes, you do. You just don't believe it yet. Lucas stood, pulling her up. Come on. I'm driving you home before you fall asleep on my couch. I'm fine. You're exhausted. Doctor's orders were to rest more, remember? Victoria wanted to argue, but a yawn betrayed her. Fine. But only because I have early meetings. No, you don't. I checked your calendar and moved them to afternoon. You're sleeping in tomorrow. You hacked my calendar? I have assistant privileges. I use them for your own good. Lucas grabbed her coat, helping her into it. Also, I'm making you a breakfast smoothie tomorrow morning. Rachel gave me a recipe that's supposed to help with morning sickness. Your sister is very invested in this pregnancy. She's excited. She wants me happy. Apparently, I've been emotionally constipated since Maria died. Her words, not mine. Victoria laughed. She's not wrong. Rude, but accurate. The drive to Victoria's condo was quiet, comfortable in ways she wasn't used to. Lucas kept one hand on the wheel and one hand holding hers, occasionally glancing over to make sure she was okay. When he walked her to her door, Victoria hesitated. Do you want to come up? I want to, Lucas said carefully, but Emily's with Rachel, and I should get home. Rain check? Rain check, Victoria agreed, disappointed but understanding. Lucas kissed her goodnight, longer than appropriate for a hallway, sweet enough to make her knees weak. Text me when you wake up and eat actual breakfast. You're very bossy for someone who's not my boss anymore. I'm going to be your partner. That gives me bossing rights. He smiled. Sleep well, Victoria. You and our baby both. After he left, Victoria entered her condo, sleek, modern, impersonal in ways that suddenly felt wrong. This wasn't a home for a baby. This was a showpiece, a statement of success that said nothing about the person living here. She'd need to change that, add warmth, color, life, make space for someone who would need more than clean lines and expensive furniture, make space for a family. The word still felt foreign, but less terrifying than it had been. Victoria changed into pajamas, completed her nightly routine, and climbed into bed with her laptop to review the Morrison building specs one last time before officially handing the project to Lucas. She made it through 3 pages before her phone rang. Lucas. Did I forget something? She asked. No, Emily just asked me a question I thought you should answer. At 9 o'clock at night? She's 5. Time is a construct she doesn't respect. Victoria heard rustling, then Emily's voice came on the line. Victoria? Are you the baby's mommy? The question was so simple, so direct. Yes, sweetie, I am. And Daddy's the baby's daddy? Yes? So that makes you like a family? Emily's voice was uncertain, seeking confirmation. Victoria's eyes filled with unexpected tears. Yes, Emily, that makes us a family. Good, Emily said, satisfied. Because I was worried the baby wouldn't have a mommy, like how I don't have one. But now the baby has you, and I kind of have you too if you keep coming to dinner, so that's better. Okay, I'm done now. Daddy wants to talk. Lucas came back on the line. Sorry, she's been thinking about family structures since dinner. Apparently, it's important to her that everyone has appropriate parental coverage. She's incredible, Victoria said, wiping tears. She is. And she's already claimed you, so you're stuck with us now. The Reed family doesn't do refunds. Good thing I'm not asking for one. After they hung up, Victoria lay in the dark, her hand on her stomach, thinking about Emily's question. Family. She'd spent so long defining herself by what she'd lost. Her father, the firm's original reputation, any sense of needing others, that she'd forgotten to imagine what she might build. But now, building was all she could think about. Not skyscrapers or commercial developments, but something more fundamental. A life that included Lucas and Emily and this baby growing inside her. A life that required trust instead of control, vulnerability instead of armor, showing up instead of always being in charge. It would be the hardest thing she'd ever designed. it would also be the most important. The next morning, Victoria woke to her alarm at 7, a full hour later than usual, and found a text from Lucas sent at 6:30. Smoothie is in your fridge, courtesy of Rachel's recipe and my breaking and entering skills. Don't ask how I got your spare key. Victoria stumbled to her kitchen and found a green smoothie with a note. Spinach, banana, ginger, protein powder, tastes better than it looks. Trust me. L. She took a cautious sip and was surprised to find it actually palatable. The ginger helped her unsettled stomach, and the protein made her feel more human. Her phone rang. Jennifer. Morning, boss. Lucas moved all your morning meetings, which I'm pretending I didn't notice even though I absolutely noticed. Also, the board meeting agenda came through. James Morrison is on it twice, once for quarterly financial review and once for a special announcement. Should I be worried? No, Victoria said. But book conference room A for the full board next month. James is retiring. Jennifer was silent for a beat. Holy shit. Sorry, is he okay? He's fine. He wants to travel, spend time with grandchildren. It's been coming for a while. And his shares? Being restructured. I'll handle the details. Understood. Anything else I should know about? Victoria hesitated, then decided transparency started now. Lucas Reed is being promoted to partner. We'll announce it at the same board meeting. Lucas? Jennifer's voice rose slightly. Our Lucas? Project manager Lucas? He's earned it. Best architectural mind we have outside of James and me. Not arguing, just surprised. Good for him. Emily will be thrilled her dad's moving up. After hanging up, Victoria realized she'd just taken the first step toward making everything official. By next month's board meeting, her pregnancy would be visible, Lucas would be her partner, and their relationship would be public knowledge. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, she felt oddly calm. Her phone buzzed with a message in the senior staff group chat. Lucas had sent a photo of the Morrison Building green roof mock-up with the caption, "Updated design ready for review, cutting environmental impact by 40% and adding community garden space. Sometimes problems are just opportunities in disguise." Victoria smiled at her phone, at the casual competence in his message, at how naturally he commanded respect from their team. She typed back, "Approved, brilliant work as always." Then, in a private message to Lucas, "Thank you for the smoothie and for everything else." His reply came quickly, "You're welcome." And Victoria? Stop checking the Morrison project files. I can see you accessing them. Trust. Remember? She laughed and closed her laptop, surrendering control for the first time in recent memory. Outside her window, Chicago stretched out in morning light, a city of buildings she'd helped shape, a skyline that bore her mark. Soon she'd be shaping something else, a life, a family, a future that required different blueprints than the one she'd been following. But for now, she had a smoothie to finish, a doctor's appointment to keep, and a growing baby to nurture. The rest would figure itself out. Or she'd figure it out with Lucas. Either way, she wasn't alone anymore. And maybe that was the strongest foundation of all. The doctor's appointment 3 days later brought Victoria face to face with reality in high-definition ultrasound imagery. Dr. Chen had insisted Lucas attend, claiming partner involvement improved outcomes, and now he sat beside Victoria in the darkened examination room, his hand gripping hers as the technician moved the wand across her gel-covered stomach. "There's the heartbeat," the technician said, and suddenly the room filled with sound, rapid, strong, undeniable proof of life. Victoria watched Lucas's face transform. His eyes widened, then filled with tears he didn't bother hiding. His grip on her hand tightened to the point of pain, but she didn't care because she was crying too, overwhelmed by the reality of this tiny person they'd created. "Strong heartbeat," Dr. Chen confirmed, studying the monitor. "Measuring right on track for 18 weeks. Everything looks healthy. Do you want to know the sex?" Victoria and Lucas looked at each other. They hadn't discussed this, hadn't planned beyond the immediate crisis of telling people and restructuring their professional lives. "Emily will want to know," Lucas said quietly. "She's already planning educational curricula for her future sibling." Victoria laughed through tears. "Then yes, we should know." The technician smiled, adjusting the image. "Congratulations, you're having a girl!" Lucas made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. Another daughter. Oh God, I'm going to be outnumbered. You're already outnumbered, Victoria pointed out, her voice shaking. You just didn't know it yet. After the appointment, they sat in Lucas's car in the parking garage, both staring at the ultrasound photos like they contained the secrets of the universe. A girl, Lucas repeated, still processing. Emily's going to lose her mind. She's been praying for a sister since she learned prayer was an option. How do we tell her? Victoria asked. Just announce it at dinner? Emily doesn't do subtle. We could wrap up a box with pink ribbons, but she'd probably guess before we finished explaining the concept of gender reveals. Lucas set down the photos, turning to face Victoria. Are you okay? You've been quiet. Victoria touched her stomach, feeling the small bump that was finally visible beneath her clothes. I'm terrified. A daughter. I have to raise a daughter in a world that's going to judge her, that's going to expect her to be perfect and quiet and accommodating. I have to teach her to be strong without becoming hard, to be successful without sacrificing herself, to be human, Lucas finished gently. You have to teach her to be human. And you have 18 years to figure it out, with help from me and Emily and everyone else who loves her. You don't have to have all the answers today. I usually have all the answers. I know, it's one of your more annoying qualities. Lucas smiled. But parenting doesn't work that way. You just do your best and apologize when you mess up and keep showing up anyway. Victoria's phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. Board meeting agenda finalized. James's announcement is scheduled for 2 weeks from today. Your calendar is cleared for prep meetings. Also, 3 board members have already asked what the announcement is about. I've told them nothing because I literally know nothing, but the suspense is killing me. 2 weeks. 14 days until everything became public knowledge, until the whispers started, until Victoria Hale's carefully constructed professional image collided with messy human reality. We should tell the senior staff before the board meeting, Victoria said, anxiety creeping into her voice. If they hear it from gossip instead of us, it'll be worse. So we tell them, Lucas agreed. Tomorrow, senior staff meeting, we lay it all out. James's retirement, my promotion, our relationship, the baby. Get it over with. They're going to think I'm showing favoritism, that I'm promoting you because we're together. Lucas's expression hardened slightly. Let them think it. Then I'll prove them wrong by being the best damn partner this firm has ever seen. I don't need you to defend my qualifications, Victoria. My work speaks for itself. She heard the hurt beneath his words, the implication that she doubted him. I know your work is exceptional. I'm not questioning that. Then stop anticipating criticism that hasn't happened yet. You're borrowing trouble. Lucas started the car. Come on. We need to tell Emily she's getting a sister before she hears it from the universe. That kid has supernatural information-gathering abilities. They picked Emily up from Rachel's house, where she'd been having a play date with her cousin. Rachel took one look at their faces and smiled knowingly. Good appointment? She asked. Very good, Lucas confirmed. We have news for Emily. She's been vibrating with curiosity all afternoon. Fair warning, she's already named the baby Sophia, because it sounds like a princess name. Emily burst into the hallway, covered in what appeared to be finger paint and glitter. Daddy! Victoria! Did you see the baby? Is it okay? Does it have all its fingers and toes yet? Lucas scooped her up despite the paint. The baby is perfect, and we found out something special today. What? Tell me, tell me, tell me. They settled into Rachel's living room, Emily bouncing between them on the couch. Lucas pulled out his phone, showing her the ultrasound image. This is your baby sister, he said quietly. Emily went perfectly still, staring at the grainy black and white image. A sister? Really, truly? Really, truly, Victoria confirmed, her throat tight. Emily launched herself at Victoria, hugging her with the full-body enthusiasm only 5-year-olds possessed. I'm going to be the best big sister ever. I'll teach her everything. Can we name her Sophia, please, please, please? We'll think about names, Lucas said diplomatically. But yes, sweetheart, you're going to be a big sister. When can she come home? I want to meet her now. Not for about 5 more months. Babies take a long time to grow. Emily's face fell. That's so long. What if I forget how to be a sister by then? Rachel laughed from the doorway. Trust me, Em. Sister skills are instinctive. You'll be fine. After the excitement settled, Rachel pulled Lucas and Victoria aside while Emily showed her cousin the ultrasound pictures. "How are you really doing?" Rachel asked Victoria directly. "Because you look exhausted, and my brother looks like he's one crisis away from a nervous breakdown." "We're managing," Victoria said automatically. "That's not what I asked." Victoria glanced at Lucas, who shrugged. "Rachel has a superpower for detecting bullshit. Lying to her is pointless." "I'm terrified," Victoria admitted. "We're telling the senior staff tomorrow, the board in 2 weeks. By next month, everyone will know I'm pregnant by my employee, and the gossip will be vicious." "So let it be vicious," Rachel said bluntly. "People talked when Lucas became a widower at 28. They talked when I got divorced. They'll talk about this. Then they'll find something else to talk about because that's what people do. You can't control their opinions, so stop trying. Controlling opinions is literally part of my job. Your job is designing buildings, not managing other people's judgments." Rachel's voice softened. "Look, I get it. You're used to being in charge, to having answers. But this situation doesn't have a perfect solution. You just have to live through it and trust that you're strong enough to handle whatever comes." The next morning, Victoria stood in front of her senior staff, 12 architects, engineers, and project managers who'd built Hale and Morrison architecture alongside her, and tried to remember how to breathe. Lucas sat to her left, James to her right. The conference room felt too small, the silence too heavy. "Thank you all for coming," Victoria began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "We have several announcements that will significantly impact the firm's structure and direction." She paused, making eye contact with each person. These were people she'd worked with for years, people who'd trusted her leadership, people whose respect she'd earned through competence and vision. First, James Morrison has decided to retire at the end of this quarter. He'll be selling his partnership shares and transitioning into an advisory role. The room erupted in surprised murmurs. James raised a hand, smiling. "It's time," he said simply. "I'm 72. I want to travel with my wife, spoil my grandchildren, and enjoy the firm's success without the daily stress. This isn't goodbye. I'll still be around to offer unsolicited opinions, but the day-to-day operations are passing to the next generation." Victoria continued. "James's shares will be restructured. I'll be purchasing half, and the other half will go to a new partner, Lucas Reed." Dead silence. Every eye turned to Lucas, who met their gazes calmly. "Lucas has proven himself to be one of the most innovative architects this firm has," Victoria said, her voice firm. "His work on the Morrison Building green roof system alone has brought us international recognition and 3 new clients. He's earned this promotion based on merit and vision." Marcus Chen, one of their senior engineers, spoke up. "Lucas is talented, no question, but this seems sudden. Is there a reason for the accelerated timeline?" This was it. The moment where Victoria could deflect, could stick to professional explanations, could maintain the walls she'd built so carefully. Instead, she chose truth. "Yes," Victoria said clearly. "Lucas and I are in a relationship. I'm 18 weeks pregnant with his child. We're making these structural changes now to eliminate any concerns about reporting hierarchies or conflicts of interest." The silence was deafening. Victoria watched shock ripple through the room, watched people exchange glances, watched Marcus's eyebrows rise to his hairline. Sophia Park, their lead environmental consultant and one of Victoria's first hires, spoke first. "How long has this relationship been going on?" "The relationship itself is new," Lucas answered. "But my qualifications for partnership aren't. I've been with this firm for 6 years. I've led 15 major projects, brought in over $40 million in revenue, and revolutionized our approach to sustainable design. This promotion is happening now because of James's retirement timeline, not because of my personal situation with Victoria." "But the timing is convenient," Marcus observed, his tone neutral but pointed. "The timing is honest," Victoria corrected. "We could have hidden the relationship, announced my pregnancy later, pretended the promotion was unrelated. Instead, we're being transparent so you all hear it from us first, not from office gossip." Sophia leaned back in her chair, studying them both. "I appreciate the honesty. Question for both of you. How do we handle client concerns? Some of our more traditional clients might have opinions about the CEO being pregnant or about workplace relationships." "Let them have opinions," Victoria said bluntly. "Our work speaks for itself. I'm not hiding my pregnancy or apologizing for my personal life. If clients have a problem with a female CEO having a child, they can find another firm. Damn right, Sophia said, a smile breaking through. About time someone in this industry stopped pretending women have to choose between careers and families. The tension in the room shifted slightly. Daniel Wright, their newest project manager, raised his hand tentatively. I just want to say congratulations to all of you. This is a lot of change, but it's good change. And Lucas, I've learned more from you in 2 years than I learned in 4 years of architecture school. You deserve the promotion. Other voices chimed in, some congratulatory, some still processing, all professional enough to focus on the work implications rather than personal judgment. James stood, commanding attention. I know this is unexpected, but I've been planning retirement for 3 years. Lucas has been proving himself for 6, and Victoria has been running this firm with excellence for over a decade. Trust that we've thought this through. Trust that the leadership structure we're proposing will strengthen the firm, not weaken it. The meeting continued for another hour, working through logistics of the transition, discussing how to present the changes to clients and the board. By the end, Victoria felt wrung out but relieved. The senior staff knew. The secret was spreading from contained to public, and she was still standing. After everyone filed out, Sophia lingered. Can I ask you something personal? Victoria tensed. Sure. Are you happy? Sophia asked simply. Because I've worked for you for 8 years, and I've never seen you look at anyone the way you look at Lucas. I just want to make sure you're doing this because you want to, not because you feel obligated. The question was so direct, so genuinely concerned, that Victoria felt her eyes sting. I'm terrified. But yes, I'm happy. Happier than I've been in a long time. Sophia smiled. Good. You deserve it, both of you. She paused at the door. Also, if you need maternity leave coverage, I'm happy to take on additional project oversight. Just putting that out there. After she left, Victoria sank into a chair, emotionally exhausted. Lucas sat beside her, taking her hand. That went better than I expected, he said. Marcus still has doubts. Marcus has doubts about everything. It's what makes him a good engineer. Lucas squeezed her hand. But we did it. We told them. The hard part's over. The hard part hasn't even started, Victoria countered. We still have the board meeting, client reactions, industry gossip. One crisis at a time, Lucas interrupted gently. Today, we told the senior staff and nobody quit or threw things. That's a win. Tomorrow we keep building. Next week we prepare for the board. But right now you need to eat lunch because you've been running on coffee and anxiety all morning. Victoria wanted to argue, but her stomach betrayed her with a growl. Fine, but I'm working through lunch. Mommy. No, you're eating lunch like a human being. Doctor's orders, remember? Lucas pulled her to her feet. Come on. There's a Thai place 2 blocks away that Emily says makes the best pad Thai in Chicago. We're trusting her judgment. They walked to the restaurant through Chicago's late March chill, Victoria's hand in Lucas's pocket for warmth. It should have felt strange being publicly affectionate after years of professional distance. Instead, it felt right, like pieces of herself she'd separated were finally connecting. Over lunch, Lucas showed her house listings on his phone. My place is great for me and Emily, but it's not big enough for a baby. I've been looking at 4-bedroom places in Lincoln Park. Good schools, family-friendly, close enough to the office. Victoria studied the listings, anxiety creeping in. These are expensive. Even with your promotion, buying a house this size. I have savings, Lucas said quietly. Maria's life insurance. I've been keeping it for Emily's college fund, but she'd want us to use it for a home. For family. The mention of Lucas's late wife should have felt uncomfortable. Instead, Victoria felt grateful that Maria had existed, that she'd loved Lucas enough to provide for him even in death, that her presence in his past made him the father he was now. You should keep that for Emily, Victoria said. I have savings too. We can split the down payment. Lucas looked up from his phone, surprised. You want to buy a house together? The question hung between them, weighted with implications. They'd been together, officially together, for less than 3 weeks. Buying a house was a massive commitment, one that said this was permanent, that they were building a future together beyond just co-parenting. Yes, Victoria said, the word coming easier than expected. I want our daughter to have a real home, not my minimalist condo or your bachelor pad pretending to be family friendly, something that's ours, all of ours. Lucas's smile was brilliant. Okay then, we're buying a house. Fair warning, Emily will want input on paint colors and insist on a swing set. I can live with that. And a dog. She's been campaigning for a dog since she learned the word puppy. Victoria laughed. Let's start with the house and the baby. We can negotiate pets later. That evening, Lucas brought Emily to Victoria's condo for the first time. The little girl's eyes went wide at the floor-to-ceiling windows and sleek modern furniture. It's like a castle, Emily breathed, but without colors. Can we add colors? We're actually looking at a new house, Lucas explained, one with more room for when the baby comes. Can I help pick it? Emily asked Victoria. I'm very good at picking houses. I picked our house when I was 3. You pointed at it from the car and said, Dat 1, Lucas corrected. I'm not sure that counts as picking. It was a good choice, Emily defended. We still live there. Victoria knelt down to Emily's level. I would love your help picking a house. You can tell me what a good house needs for a family. Emily's face lit up. Okay, houses need a kitchen for snacks, bedrooms for sleeping, a backyard for playing, and a special room for the baby with soft things because babies are delicate. That's very thorough. I'm good at planning, Emily said seriously, in a tone so reminiscent of Lucas that Victoria had to hide a smile. They ordered pizza and spread house listings across Victoria's coffee table. Emily vetoed several options for various reasons. One didn't have enough trees, another had a sad-looking porch, a third was too far from Aunt Rachel. Finally, she pointed to a brick colonial in Lincoln Park. This one. It has a porch swing and a big tree, and the bedroom windows have shutters like fairy tale houses. Victoria studied the listing. 4 bedrooms, updated kitchen, finished basement, small backyard with mature trees. It was more traditional than her usual aesthetic, but looking at Emily's excited face, she could imagine it. Could see Lucas pushing a baby stroller up that front walk, Emily doing homework at the kitchen table, family dinners and birthday parties, and all the messy, beautiful chaos she'd never let herself want before. Let's schedule a viewing, Victoria said. The viewing happened 3 days later. Victoria, Lucas, and Emily walked through the house while the realtor pointed out recent renovations and neighborhood amenities. Emily claimed the smallest bedroom for herself before they'd even finished the tour, declaring it perfect because she could see the big tree from her window. The master bedroom had good light and built-in bookshelves that Lucas immediately started mentally organizing. The nursery was next to what would be Emily's room, connected by a Jack and Jill bathroom. Sisters can share a bathroom when they're older, Emily explained to Victoria. Aunt Rachel says it's how you learn to negotiate, which is important for life. Standing in the empty nursery, Victoria could almost see it furnished. A crib against one wall, a rocking chair by the window, shelves full of books and toys. Could imagine late-night feedings, whispered lullabies, watching this baby girl grow into whoever she'd become. Lucas came up behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist, his hand over where their daughter was growing. You okay? I'm imagining it, Victoria admitted. The future, our family in this house. And? It's terrifying and perfect, and I want it so much it hurts. They made an offer that afternoon, slightly above asking because the Chicago market was competitive, and Victoria didn't want to lose this house that Emily had already claimed as theirs. The seller accepted within hours. 2 weeks later, Victoria stood in front of Hale and Morrison Architecture's board of directors, her pregnancy now visible beneath her tailored suit jacket, and delivered the news that would reshape her professional world. James had already announced his retirement to applause and warm tributes. Now came Victoria's turn. As James transitions to advisory status, we're restructuring partnership. Lucas Reed, currently our senior project manager, has demonstrated exceptional architectural vision and business acumen. He'll be purchasing half of James's shares and joining me as co-partner. Board member Patricia Huang, a sharp-eyed venture capitalist who'd invested in the firm 5 years ago, spoke first. Lucas Reed is talented. I've seen his Morrison building redesigned, but this is a significant promotion. What's the timeline for this decision? The timeline is now, Victoria said evenly. And before anyone questions the merit of this promotion, I should disclose that Lucas and I are in a relationship. I'm currently 18 weeks pregnant. These facts don't change his qualifications, but they do inform our decision to restructure the partnership hierarchy to eliminate any conflicts of interest. The room went silent. Victoria watched Patricia's expression carefully. She was the board's most influential member, and her reaction would set the tone. Patricia leaned back in her chair, studying Victoria with calculating eyes. You're telling me you're pregnant by your employee and promoting him to partner simultaneously? I'm telling you I'm promoting a talented architect to a position he's earned, and yes, we're also having a child together. The two facts exist, but one doesn't negate the other. The optics are problematic, another board member, Gerald Morrison, James's nephew and perpetual thorn in Victoria's side, pointed out. Clients might question the firm's professionalism. Our clients care about quality design and timely delivery, Victoria countered, both of which we've consistently provided. My personal life doesn't impact our professional excellence. It impacts perception, Gerald insisted. Female CEO, pregnant by her employee, that's tabloid material, not serious architecture. Lucas, sitting beside Victoria, spoke up. With respect, Gerald, I've brought this firm $43 million in revenue over 6 years. I've won 2 national design awards. I've mentored 8 junior architects who've gone on to lead their own projects. My relationship with Victoria doesn't erase any of that work. If you're questioning my qualifications, I'm happy to present my full portfolio for review. Patricia held up a hand. No one's questioning your qualifications, Lucas. We're questioning the timing and the optics. Victoria, how do you propose we handle client concerns? With honesty, Victoria said firmly. We're not hiding anything. I'm pregnant, Lucas and I are together, and we're building a family while continuing to build exceptional architecture. If clients can't accept that reality, they're welcome to find another firm. I'm not apologizing for being human. James cleared his throat. If I may offer perspective, I've worked with Victoria for over a decade. She's rebuilt this firm from bankruptcy to becoming one of Chicago's premier architecture houses. She's earned the right to make leadership decisions without justifying her personal life. Lucas has proven himself repeatedly. This board can either trust their judgment and support this transition, or we can micromanage and second-guess, which will absolutely damage the firm more than any gossip could. Patricia studied them both for a long moment, then smiled. Motion to approve Lucas Reed's promotion to partner and support the restructured partnership agreement. All in favor? The vote wasn't unanimous. Gerald abstained. 2 others voted against. But it passed with enough support to make it official. After the meeting, Patricia pulled Victoria aside. That took courage. Not many CEOs would be that direct about a situation like this. Hiding it seemed worse, Victoria said. It is worse. Secrecy always breeds more problems than honesty. Patricia's expression softened. Congratulations, by the way, on the baby and the partnership. Lucas seems like a good man. He is. Good. You deserve that. This industry is hard enough without doing it alone. Patricia paused. Also, if you need any advice on managing a pregnancy while running a company, I've been there. Had my son while running my first venture fund. Happy to share war stories over coffee sometime. After Patricia left, Victoria found Lucas waiting in her office. He looked exhausted, but relieved. We did it, he said. It's official. I'm your partner. In every sense, Victoria agreed, moving into his arms. They stood together in her office overlooking Chicago, the city spreading out beneath them in twilight. Victoria thought about all the buildings she'd designed, all the structures she'd poured herself into. They were impressive, lasting, proof of her skill. But none of them felt as important as what she was building now. This family, this partnership, this terrifying and beautiful future. I'm still scared, she admitted quietly. Good, Lucas said. Being scared means it matters, means you care enough to worry. That's not weakness, that's love. Victoria looked up at him, at this man who'd somehow seen past her armor to the person underneath, who'd offered her partnership in every sense, who was choosing her even when it complicated everything. I love you, she said, the words feeling new and ancient at once. I should have said it sooner, but I was too afraid. Lucas's smile was tender. I know, I've known for a while. Known, but hearing it is better. I love you too, he said. You and Emily and this baby we're bringing into the world. All of it. Even the terrifying parts. Especially the terrifying parts, Victoria corrected. They kissed as the sun set over Chicago, two architects redesigning their lives into something neither had planned but both desperately wanted. The truth was spoken. The secret was out. Now came the part where they learned to live it. The gossip started exactly as Victoria had predicted. Swift, pervasive, and surprisingly vicious. Within 24 hours of the board meeting, industry blogs picked up the story. Architecture CEO promotes pregnant partner, read one headline. Hale and Morrison restructures amid personal scandal, declared another. The comment sections were predictably brutal, questioning everything from Victoria's judgment to Lucas's integrity to whether their relationship was even real or just strategic maneuvering. Victoria sat in her office reading the coverage on her laptop, her hand protectively over her 20-week belly, trying to maintain the professional composure that had served her for over a decade. She was failing spectacularly. Lucas entered without knocking, took one look at her face, and closed the laptop firmly. Stop reading that garbage. I need to know what people are saying, how to respond, how to manage. You manage by ignoring it, Lucas said, his voice gentle but firm. By doing excellent work and living your life. You can't control what strangers on the internet think about us. But I can control our reputation, the firm's reputation. Victoria. Lucas knelt beside her chair, taking her hands. Our reputation is built on 12 years of exceptional architecture. One gossip cycle isn't going to destroy that. You know what will damage us? If we let this consume us. If we start making decisions based on fear instead of vision. Victoria's eyes filled with frustrated tears. These damn pregnancy hormones made everything feel amplified. I just wanted to do this right. Tell people honestly, handle it professionally, and somehow still maintain respect. You did do it right. You were honest, you were professional, and the people who matter, our team, our real clients, the board majority, they support us. The rest is just noise. A knock on the door interrupted them. Jennifer poked her head in, her expression apologetic. Sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation. Gerald Morrison just called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. He's claiming the pregnancy announcement has already cost us a client. Victoria's stomach dropped. Which client? Henderson Development. Apparently Robert Henderson saw the coverage and called Gerald directly to express concerns about leadership stability. Lucas stood, his jaw tight. Henderson's been looking for an excuse to renegotiate his contract for months. This isn't about Victoria's pregnancy. It's about him trying to gain leverage. Doesn't matter what it's about, Victoria said, exhaustion seeping into her voice. Gerald will use it to question the partnership restructure. He voted against it anyway. This gives him ammunition. Jennifer hesitated. There's more. 3 junior architects got calls from recruiters this morning. Word is spreading that the firm might be unstable. People are circling, trying to poach our talent. After Jennifer left, Victoria sat in silence, processing the implications. This was worse than gossip. This was actual professional damage, the kind that could undermine everything she'd built. We fight, Lucas said quietly, reading her mind. We go to that board meeting tomorrow. We present Henderson's history of contract disputes. We show that our other clients are fine, and we make it clear that Gerald's drama doesn't reflect reality. What if it's not enough? What if you trust me? Lucas interrupted. Trust us? We're partners now, Victoria. You don't have to carry this alone. The words hit harder than they should have. Victoria realized she'd been unconsciously reverting to old patterns, shouldering all responsibility, trying to control every variable, treating Lucas like someone to protect rather than an equal partner. I'm sorry, she said quietly. You're right. We handle this together. That evening, instead of working late as she normally would have, Victoria left the office at 6 and met Lucas at the house they'd just closed on. The moving truck wasn't coming until the weekend, so the space was empty except for paint samples and Emily's excited chatter echoing through the rooms. Emily had claimed her bedroom and was currently explaining to Mr. Trunks why the walls needed to be purple, like a princess, but not baby purple, big girl purple, while Rachel supervised with amused patience. Lucas found Victoria standing in what would be the nursery, staring at blank walls and trying to imagine the future they were building. Emily wants to paint her room this weekend, he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind, his hand settling over her belly. She's already designed a mural featuring elephants, castles, and apparently a rocket ship because sisters should know about space. Victoria leaned back against him, letting herself be held. I love that she's so certain, that she just knows what she wants and doesn't second-guess everything. She gets that from you, actually. You're both stubborn and certain when you believe in something. You've just had more time to learn anxiety. Gee, thanks, Lucas laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest into her back. I mean it as a compliment. Emily's certainty is innocent. Yours is earned. You know how badly things can go wrong, and you still choose to build anyway. That's courage. The baby kicked hard enough for Lucas to feel it, and his sharp intake of breath made Victoria smile despite her stress. She's active tonight, Victoria observed. She knows her dad's here, Lucas said softly, his hand moving to where their daughter was apparently doing gymnastics. Hey, baby girl. Your big sister picked you out a room. It's right next to hers, so she can protect you from bad dreams and teach you important things like the alphabet and why dinosaurs are scientifically fascinating. Victoria's throat tightened with emotion. You're going to be an amazing father to her. You already are. I'm terrified I'll mess it up, that I'll somehow love Emily more because I had her first, or love this baby more because she represents the future with you. That I'll fail both of them by trying to be enough for everyone. The vulnerability in his voice surprised Victoria. Lucas always seemed so steady, so certain. Hearing him admit fear made her love him even more. You won't fail them, she said firmly. You show up. You care? You try. That's what being a parent is. Not being perfect, but being present. Is that what you're planning to do? Because from where I'm standing, you're still trying to be perfect at this. Victoria turned in his arms to face him. I don't know how to not try to be perfect. It's how I've survived, how I rebuilt my father's firm, how I earned respect in an industry that doesn't give women much margin for error. But you're not just surviving anymore, Lucas pointed out gently. You're living. You're building a family, not a reputation. Different rules apply. Before Victoria could respond, Emily appeared in the doorway, Rachel trailing behind her. Victoria, can you help me pick paint colors? Daddy always picks boring colors like beige and gray. I need someone with vision. Emily said the last word very seriously, clearly repeating something she'd heard adults say. Victoria laughed despite everything. I think I can help with that. They spent the next hour looking at paint samples, Emily rejecting anything too pale and insisting that colors should make you feel things, not just look okay. Rachel offered commentary while Lucas took measurements and made notes about furniture placement. It felt surreal, playing house in an empty building, planning a future while their professional world potentially crumbled. But it also felt right. Like these were the moments that actually mattered, the foundation beneath all the career achievements and architectural awards. When Rachel took Emily home for dinner, Lucas and Victoria sat on the floor of what would be their bedroom, surrounded by paint chips and measuring tapes. I've been thinking about the board meeting tomorrow, Lucas said carefully. What if I step down from the partnership temporarily, just until after the baby's born, until the gossip dies down? We could restructure again later when… No, Victoria said firmly. Absolutely not. That's exactly what Gerald wants, to prove that our relationship undermines our professional judgment. If you step down, it confirms every nasty assumption those articles are making. But if it protects the firm, it won't protect anything. It'll just prove we're ashamed, that we think we did something wrong. Victoria took his hands. We earned this partnership. You earned it. I won't let gossip and Gerald Morrison's political maneuvering take that away. Lucas studied her face. You're sure? Because I can handle stepping back if it means less stress for you and the baby. I'm sure. We fight. Together. The emergency board meeting the next morning felt like walking into an ambush. Gerald Morrison had clearly spent the night preparing, armed with printouts of every negative article and a presentation outlining reputational damage assessment. Henderson Development has withdrawn from preliminary discussions about the riverfront project, Gerald announced, his tone suggesting this was a catastrophic failure. That's a potential $12 million loss, directly attributable to recent leadership decisions. Patricia Huang raised an eyebrow. Henderson withdrew from preliminary discussions, not from the existing contract for the Lincoln Street development, which is still worth $18 million and on schedule. Let's be precise about what we're actually discussing. The point is that clients are concerned, Gerald insisted. And it's not just Henderson. I've heard from 3 other developers who are questioning whether the firm's leadership is stable enough for major projects. You've heard from them, Victoria said coolly, or you've been calling them to plant concerns. Gerald's face flushed. That's a serious accusation. And you're making serious accusations about our stability based on my personal life. So let's be direct, Gerald. What's your actual concern here? That I'm pregnant? That Lucas and I are in a relationship? Or that you voted against the partnership restructure and you're looking for validation? I'm concerned about the firm my uncle built, Gerald shot back, about maintaining professional standards and client confidence. James Morrison, who'd remained silent until now, spoke up. The firm I built valued integrity, innovation, and excellence. Victoria has demonstrated all 3 for 12 years. Lucas has demonstrated them for 6. Their personal relationship doesn't change their professional capabilities. But it does change perception, another board member pointed out. We can't ignore that. Lucas leaned forward, his voice calm but authoritative. Then let's talk about perception versus reality. Since joining this firm, I've led 15 major projects with a 96% client satisfaction rate. I've brought in $43 million in revenue. I've trained 8 junior architects who've gone on to lead their own teams. My work on sustainable design has won 2 national awards and positioned this firm as an industry leader in environmental architecture. Those are facts. The gossip is noise. Well-articulated noise, Gerald muttered. The architecture community is small. Reputation matters. So does talent, Patricia said firmly. I've reviewed Lucas's portfolio extensively before voting for his promotion. He's exceptional. And frankly, I'm more concerned about losing him to a competitor than I am about some temporary gossip. If we start making leadership decisions based on internet comments, we're not running a serious business. The debate continued for another hour, Gerald pushing for some kind of formal reprimand or partnership delay, Patricia and James defending the original decision. Victoria watched the dynamics carefully, calculating votes, assessing which board members were genuinely concerned versus which were playing politics. Finally, Patricia called for a vote. The partnership restructure was approved 2 weeks ago through proper channels. Unless there's evidence of actual misconduct or breach of contract, I see no reason to revisit it. All in favor of maintaining the current leadership structure? The vote was closer than Victoria would have liked. 7 in favor, 4 against, 1 abstention, but it held. After the meeting, Gerald cornered Victoria in the hallway. This isn't over. You're making a mistake. And when it blows up, it'll take the whole firm down with you. Is that a threat or a prediction? Victoria asked evenly. It's a warning from someone who actually cares about this firm's legacy. If you cared about the legacy, you'd support the leadership instead of undermining it. Victoria kept her voice low but firm. You lost the vote, Gerald. Twice. Accept it and move on, or resign from the board. But stop sabotaging us. She walked away before he could respond, her heart racing but her head high. Lucas caught up to her in the parking garage. That was brutal. That was politics. Gerald's been looking for a way to gain control since James announced retirement. We just gave him a convenient excuse. Victoria leaned against her car, suddenly exhausted. I'm so tired, Lucas. Tired of fighting, of defending, of having to prove myself over and over. I know. He pulled her close, not caring who might see them. But you don't have to prove yourself to me, or to Emily, or to this baby. You just have to be you. Brilliant, stubborn, occasionally controlling you. That's enough. Victoria's phone buzzed, a text from Sophia Park. Just heard about the board meeting. Henderson's been a pain for months. We're better off without that project. Also, I brought clients into 2 new sustainable design consultations based on Lucas's Morrison building work. Thought you should know the good news, not just Gerald's drama. She showed Lucas the message. He smiled. See? We're fine. Better than fine. That evening, they picked up Emily from school together, a first that made the little girl practically vibrate with excitement. Everyone at school wanted to know why both my parents were here, she reported. I said it's because we're a family now and families do things together. What did your teacher say? Lucas asked, navigating Chicago traffic. She said that's lovely and asked if we're getting married. Are we getting married? The question hung in the air. Victoria and Lucas hadn't discussed marriage, too focused on immediate crises to consider future ones. "We're taking things one step at a time," Lucas said carefully. "Right now we're focused on moving into our new house and getting ready for the baby. But later you'll get married, right? Because the baby should have married parents. That's what Tyler's mom said about his baby brother." Victoria turned to look at Emily in the back seat. "What matters is that we love each other and we're committed to being a family. Marriage is important, but it's not the only thing that makes a family real." Emily considered this. "So we're a real family now, even without a wedding?" "Yes, sweetheart," Lucas confirmed. "We're a real family." "Good. Because I already told everyone you're my stepmom. Is that okay?" Victoria's throat closed with emotion. "That's very okay." Later that night, after Emily was in bed at Lucas's place, Victoria and Lucas sat on his couch discussing the day's chaos. "She's right, you know," Lucas said quietly. "About marriage. Not because the baby needs it, but because I want it. Want you, officially, permanently." Victoria's heart stuttered. "Lucas, I'm not proposing right now," he clarified quickly. "This isn't the romantic gesture you deserve. I'm just saying that when the dust settles, when we're in our house and the baby's here and everything calms down, I want to ask you properly. Want to make this official in every way." "What if it never calms down?" Victoria asked. "What if there's always some crisis, some gossip, some Gerald Morrison trying to undermine us? Then we get married anyway and deal with chaos together." Lucas took her hand. "I'm not waiting for perfect circumstances, Victoria. We both know those don't exist. I'm just waiting for the right moment to ask you to spend your life with me." Victoria kissed him, tasting promise and commitment and a future she was still learning to imagine. "For the record, I'd say yes. Whenever you ask. However you ask." "Good to know. Takes the pressure off the romantic planning." They spent the weekend moving into the new house, a process made chaotic by Emily's insistence on helping, which mostly involved unpacking Victoria's book collection and reorganizing it by color rather than subject. Rachel and Lucas's parents came to assist, and Victoria found herself suddenly surrounded by family. Not the distant, formal concept she'd grown up with, but loud, messy, affectionate people who argued about furniture placement and laughed over pizza and treated her like she'd always belonged. Lucas's mother, Maria, named for Lucas's late wife in a gesture Victoria found both touching and complicated, pulled her aside while they were unpacking kitchen boxes. "I need to say something," Maria said, her voice gentle but firm. "When Lucas told me about you, about the baby, I had concerns. Not because of you specifically, but because I watched him grieve for 4 years. I was scared he was rushing into something because he was lonely or because he wanted Emily to have a complete family." Victoria's stomach nodded. "And now? Now I've watched you with him, with Emily. I've seen how he looks at you, like you're the answer to questions he stopped asking. And I've seen how you look at our granddaughter, like you're already planning how to protect her from the world." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "You're not a replacement for what he lost. You're something new, something he chose when he was ready to choose again. That matters." "I'm terrified I'll fail him," Victoria admitted. "Fail all of them. I don't have the instincts for this. For family." "Neither did I when I married Lucas's father," Maria said. "I was a career-focused architect who didn't even like children. Then I had Lucas and discovered that love isn't instinct, it's decision. You decide every day to show up, to try, to care. That's what makes a family." By Sunday evening, the house looked lived in, if not fully organized. Emily's room was painted her carefully selected shade of purple. The nursery had primer on the walls, and the master bedroom had a bed that Victoria and Lucas fell into exhausted. "We did it," Lucas murmured, pulling her close despite the paint stains on his clothes. "We have a home." "We have a construction site that happens to have beds," Victoria corrected, but she was smiling. "Same thing. Give it 6 months and it'll be perfect." "I don't need perfect, I just need us." The words felt revolutionary coming from her mouth. Victoria Hale, who'd built a career on perfectionism, admitting that good enough was actually enough when it came to the things that mattered. Monday morning brought new challenges and unexpected relief. Henderson Development did officially withdraw from the riverfront preliminary discussions, but 3 new clients requested consultations based on the Morrison Building's sustainable design features. The gossip continued, but it was already fading from the architecture blogs, replaced by newer scandals and industry news. Marcus Chen stopped by Victoria's office with surprising news. I owe you an apology. I questioned Lucas's promotion at the senior staff meeting, implied it was favoritism, but I've been reviewing his work more closely, and he's brilliant. The green roof system alone is going to change how we approach urban architecture. I was wrong to doubt your judgment. Thank you, Victoria said, surprised by the admission. That means a lot. Also, my wife pointed out I was being sexist, Marcus continued wryly. She asked if I'd question the promotion if Lucas were your brother or college roommate or golf buddy. Made me realize I was applying different standards because of the relationship, so yeah, I'm sorry. After he left, Sophia appeared with coffee and a knowing smile. The tide's turning. People are remembering that you're actually good at your job and that gossip is boring after 48 hours. Gerald's still campaigning against us, Victoria pointed out. Gerald's always campaigning against something. It's his hobby. Sophia handed over the coffee. Decaf before you ask. How are you feeling? Exhausted, overwhelmed, surprisingly happy despite everything. Good. You deserve happy. Sophia hesitated. Can I ask you something personal? Sure. Are you going to take maternity leave? Because I've been here 8 years and I've never seen you take more than 3 consecutive days off. The idea of you actually resting seems scientifically impossible. Victoria laughed. I'm planning 12 weeks. Maybe more. Lucas is insisting, and honestly, I'm too tired to argue. Miracles do happen, Sophia said. Who's covering your projects? Lucas, you, Daniel. We're distributing responsibilities across the senior team. It'll be fine. It will be, Sophia agreed, because you're finally learning to delegate. Only took a pregnancy and a relationship to make it happen. That afternoon, Victoria had her 24-week checkup. Lucas met her at the clinic and they saw their daughter on ultrasound again. Bigger now, more defined, unmistakably real. She's measuring perfectly, Dr. Chen reported. Heart rate good, growth on track. How are you feeling? Tired, emotional, slightly terrified every waking moment. Dr. Chen laughed. Sounds about right. Blood pressure's still a bit high. I want you working fewer hours, getting more sleep. I know you're a CEO, but your body doesn't care about your job title. It cares about growing a healthy baby. I'm trying, Victoria protested. Try harder, Dr. Chen said bluntly. You're in your 3rd trimester soon. This is when complications can develop if you're not careful. Delegate, rest. Let other people carry some weight. In the car afterward, Lucas was quiet. What are you thinking? Victoria asked. I'm thinking about hiring you an assistant specifically for personal stuff. Someone to handle house things, baby prep, all the logistics you normally do yourself. I don't need— Yes, you do, Lucas interrupted gently. You're working full-time, dealing with partnership drama, preparing for a baby, and trying to be present for Emily. That's too much for one person. Let me help. Let us hire help. Victoria wanted to argue, to insist she could handle everything. But she was exhausted, and Dr. Chen's warning about complications scared her more than she wanted to admit. Okay, she said quietly, but I get to interview them. Deal, control freak. You knew what you were getting into. I did. Lucky me. They drove home. They're home now, the house they'd chosen together, and found Emily in the kitchen with Rachel, both covered in flour from an apparent cookie-making disaster. We're making cookies for the baby, Emily announced, except they look weird because we use too much flour. Aunt Rachel says it's a learning experience. It's a mess, Rachel corrected, but Em wanted to do something nice for her sister, so here we are. Victoria looked at the flour-covered kitchen, the misshapen cookies, Emily's proud smile, and felt something shift in her chest. This was family, imperfect, chaotic, nothing like the controlled environment she'd spent years creating, and it was exactly what she needed. They look delicious, Victoria said, meaning it. You have to wait until they cool down, Emily instructed seriously, and then we save half for the baby because sharing is important. That night, after Emily was asleep and the kitchen was mostly clean, Victoria and Lucas sat in the nursery making a list of things they still needed to buy. Crib, changing table, car seat, approximately 7,000 other items Victoria had never considered. This is overwhelming, she admitted, staring at the list. So we tackle it piece by piece, like any project. We break it down into manageable tasks and handle them one at a time. You're very calm about this. I've done it before, Lucas reminded her. I know it feels impossible now, but you'll figure it out. We both will. Victoria leaned against him, feeling their daughter move between them. In 4 months, she'd be here. This tiny person they'd made, this life they'd be responsible for shaping. I'm choosing courage, Victoria said quietly, over control, over fear. I'm choosing to trust this, to trust us, even when it's terrifying. Lucas kissed her temple. That's all anyone can do. Choose courage and keep showing up. Is that your parenting philosophy? It's my life philosophy. Seems to be working so far. Victoria thought about everything that had happened in the past 2 months. The pregnancy revelation, the partnership restructure, the gossip and drama and fear. She thought about choosing Lucas despite professional risk, about buying this house, about becoming Emily's stepmom, about preparing for a daughter who would demand vulnerability she'd spent years avoiding. Control had kept her safe. Courage was terrifying. But courage was also the only path forward that felt honest. Okay, she said, both to Lucas and to herself. We choose courage. Together. And for the first time in her carefully controlled life, Victoria Hale believed it. The weeks that followed settled into a rhythm Victoria never could have imagined 6 months ago. She woke up in a house that smelled like coffee and Emily's strawberry shampoo, went to work where Lucas sat in the office next to hers as an equal partner, and came home to family dinners where a 5-year-old dictated conversation topics and insisted everyone share their best part of the day. It was chaotic and imperfect and nothing like the controlled existence she'd built. It was also the happiest she'd ever been. By 30 weeks, Victoria's pregnancy was impossible to hide and equally impossible to ignore. She'd had to buy new suits tailored to accommodate her growing belly, and clients had stopped pretending not to notice. Most were congratulatory. Some were awkward. A few made comments that Lucas had to physically restrain her from responding to with the full force of her considerable vocabulary. He said pregnancy brain like it's a medical diagnosis, Victoria fumed after a particularly condescending client meeting. I have an advanced degree in architecture and 12 years of experience. My brain works fine, thank you. Your brain works better than fine, Lucas agreed, steering her toward the elevator. But getting into arguments with clients about sexist terminology isn't good for your blood pressure. Let me handle Morrison from now on. I can handle my own clients. I know you can. But you also need to rest more, and Morrison is exhausting even when you're not growing a human. Lucas pressed the button for their floor. This is what partners do, Victoria. We cover for each other. Let me carry some of your weight. Victoria wanted to argue, but a sharp kick from their daughter made her wince. The baby had apparently inherited her father's timing and her mother's opinions, and she expressed both frequently through increasingly aggressive movement. She's particularly feisty today, Victoria observed, her hand moving to where tiny feet were apparently practicing karate. She takes after her mother, Lucas said, smiling, strong-willed and determined to make her presence known. I'm not strong-willed, I'm appropriately assertive. You rewrote the office handbook because you disagreed with the font choice. You're strong-willed. The previous font was inefficient for readability. That's just good design sense. Lucas laughed, and the sound still made Victoria's chest warm even after months of hearing it daily. They'd moved past the awkward adjustment phase into something comfortable and real, building a partnership that worked both professionally and personally, because they'd stopped trying to separate the two. That evening, Victoria came home to find the nursery transformed. Lucas and Emily had apparently spent the afternoon painting. The walls were now a soft sage green with delicate white clouds that Emily had insisted on adding because babies like sky things. "We finished," Emily announced proudly, dragging Victoria into the room. "Look, we put clouds everywhere so the baby knows she's special and loved, and also that weather exists because education is important." Victoria surveyed the room, taking in the hand-painted clouds of varying sizes and shapes, the obvious care in every brushstroke. It wasn't professional or perfect. It was better. It was made with love by the family this baby was being born into. "It's beautiful," Victoria said, her voice thick with emotion. "I did the high clouds because I'm tall for my age," Emily explained. "And Daddy did the low ones because he said your back hurts, and you shouldn't climb ladders while pregnant. Is that true? Does your back hurt? Sometimes, Victoria admitted. Then you should sit down. Daddy says pregnant people need to rest a lot. Emily grabbed Victoria's hand, leading her to the rocking chair Lucas had assembled in the corner. See? We got this so you can rock the baby when she's crying. I helped pick it out. It's sturdy, which is important for furniture. Victoria sat in the chair, Emily climbing into her lap despite being nearly too big for it. Lucas leaned against the doorframe, watching them with an expression that made Victoria's heart ache in the best way. You two did all this today? Victoria asked. Em insisted, Lucas said. She wanted the room ready before the baby shower next week. Speaking of which, Rachel has apparently invited half of Chicago, so prepare yourself. I told Rachel I didn't want a big shower. And Rachel heard, please invite everyone I've ever met. You know how she is. Lucas moved into the room, kneeling beside the rocking chair. How was your day? Any more condescending clients? Just Morrison. But I let you handle him, see? I'm learning to delegate. Mark this day on the calendar. Victoria Hale delegated something without a fight. Emily looked between them, confused. Why wouldn't you delegate? Delegation is how you manage complex projects with multiple stakeholders. That's what Daddy told me when I asked why I have to share my toys. Your father is very wise, Victoria said, catching Lucas's amused smile. I know. That's why I listen to him even when I don't want to share. Emily snuggled closer to Victoria. Can I feel the baby kick? Victoria guided Emily's small hand to where their daughter was currently doing acrobatics. Emily's eyes went wide when she felt the movement. She's so strong. Is she going to be a soccer player? Maybe, Victoria said, or an architect, or anything she wants to be. I want her to be my sister, Emily said seriously. That's the most important job. Later that night, after Emily was asleep and the house was quiet, Victoria and Lucas sat in their bedroom sorting through baby clothes Rachel had dropped off, hand-me-downs from her youngest, tiny onesies and sleepers that seemed impossibly small. I can't imagine a human being small enough to fit in these, Victoria said, holding up a newborn outfit. You will in about 10 weeks, Lucas reminded her, assuming she doesn't decide to come early like Emily did. Don't even joke about that. I have 3 major projects to hand off before maternity leave. Early arrival is not in the schedule. Babies don't check schedules, love. They come when they're ready. Victoria set down the onesie, suddenly overwhelmed. What if I'm not ready? What if I don't have the instincts for this? What if I'm so busy trying to maintain control that I miss everything important? Lucas moved closer, taking her hands. You're already ready. You've been ready since the moment you decided to keep her, to build this life with me. The rest is just showing up and trying, which you're exceptional at. I'm exceptional at working, at designing buildings, at solving professional problems. This is different. It's not that different, Lucas said gently. Architecture is about creating spaces for people to live and grow. Parenting is about creating space for a person to live and grow. You know how to do this, Victoria. You've been doing it with Emily for months. Emily's easy. She's already formed, already has personality. A baby is just need and crying and fragility. A baby is also love and laughter and watching someone become who they're meant to be. Lucas placed his hand over her belly. You're going to be an amazing mother, not a perfect one. Those don't exist, but an amazing one who shows up and tries and loves this little girl with everything you have. The baby kicked against his palm, as if agreeing. The baby shower the following Saturday was exactly as chaotic as Lucas had warned. Rachel had indeed invited half of Chicago, family, co-workers, clients, board members, apparently everyone Victoria had ever spoken to professionally. The house was full of people, presents, and far too much pink despite Victoria's repeated insistence that the baby didn't need gender-stereotyped clothing. I got her a construction toy set, Sophia announced, handing over a wrapped box. Start her early on spatial reasoning and problem solving. Also, it's not pink because I respect your wishes even if everyone else ignored them. Patricia Huang arrived with an enormous gift basket and unsolicited advice. The first 3 months are survival mode. Don't try to be perfect, don't compare yourself to other mothers, and don't feel guilty about asking for help. I made all those mistakes with my son. Learn from my failures. Even Gerald Morrison showed up, though his gift was stiff and his congratulations felt obligatory. But he was there, which Victoria supposed was progress. Emily appointed herself tour guide, showing everyone the nursery and explaining in detail why the clouds were educationally important and how she'd personally selected the rocking chair based on sturdiness requirements. She also announced to anyone who would listen that her sister was going to be named Sophia Rose Reed Hale, which was news to Victoria and Lucas, who hadn't actually finalized a name yet. Sophia Rose? Victoria asked Lucas quietly, while Emily was distracted by cake. Emily's been campaigning for Sophia since we found out it was a girl. Rose is my mother's middle name. Reed Hale hyphenated because Emily insisted the baby should have both our names for fairness. Lucas smiled. I was going to discuss it with you properly, but apparently our daughter has her own timeline. Victoria tested the name in her mind. Sophia Rose Reed Hale. It was longer than she'd typically prefer, but it connected their daughter to both families, honored Lucas's mother, and made Emily feel included in the decision. I like it, Victoria decided. Sophia Rose it is. You're not going to argue about the hyphenation or suggest something more practical? I'm choosing my battles, and Emily's right. Fairness matters. Lucas kissed her temple. Look at you, compromising. I'm so proud. Don't get used to it. I'm still arguing about everything else. I wouldn't have it any other way. As the party wound down and guests departed with leftover cake and words of encouragement, Victoria found herself sitting in the nursery, now full of gifts to unwrap and organize, feeling the weight of impending change. In less than 2 months, this room would have an actual baby in it. She'd be responsible for keeping a tiny human alive, for teaching her and protecting her and somehow not destroying her with the same perfectionism that had defined Victoria's own life. Rachel found her there, sitting in the rocking chair, surrounded by unopened presents. Overwhelmed? Rachel asked, settling onto the floor. Completely. There are so many things we still need to do. Install the car seat, baby-proof the house, finalize pediatrician choices, create feeding schedules, figure out sleep training philosophies. Victoria, Rachel interrupted gently. Breathe. You don't need to solve everything tonight. The car seat can wait until next week. The baby-proofing can happen gradually. And as for feeding schedules and sleep training, you'll figure those out when Sophia's actually here and you can see what works for her specifically. But I like having plans. Plans make things manageable. I know, but babies don't follow plans. They're tiny, chaotic beings who demand flexibility and patience and the ability to completely rearrange your priorities on no notice. Rachel smiled. Which is terrifying for someone like you, but it's also kind of beautiful because it forces you to live in the moment instead of always trying to control the future. Victoria's hand moved to her belly, feeling Sophia's familiar movements. What if I can't do it? What if I'm too rigid, too controlling, too human? Rachel finished. Victoria, you're going to make mistakes. Every parent does. But you're also going to love this baby with a fierceness that surprises you. You're going to figure out what works for your family, not what some book says should work. And you're going to be fine. Better than fine. How do you know? Because I've watched you with Emily. You don't treat her like a subordinate or a project. You treat her like a person whose opinions matter, whose feelings are valid, whose needs are important. That's what good parenting looks like. The rest is just logistics. After Rachel left, Victoria stayed in the nursery, rocking slowly in the chair Lucas and Emily had chosen. She thought about the past 7 months, from that terrifying moment staring at a positive pregnancy test, to this moment, surrounded by evidence of people who cared, in a house full of love, carrying a daughter who already had a family ready to welcome her. It wasn't the life she'd planned. It was better. At 36 weeks, Victoria officially started maternity leave despite protesting that she felt fine and could work up until delivery. Lucas and Sophia had vetoed this plan, citing doctor's orders and common sense. You need to rest, Sophia said firmly, taking files from Victoria's hands. The firm will survive without you for 3 months, possibly longer if you decide you actually like spending time with your baby. I'm coming back after 12 weeks. Sure you are, Sophia said, in a tone that suggested she didn't believe it at all. Victoria spent her first week of leave attempting to organize the house with meticulous precision, driving Lucas to distraction with her need to have everything perfectly prepared. The bottles are sterilized and organized by size, she announced on day 3. The diapers are sorted by type and stored in 3 separate locations for efficiency. The baby clothes are arranged by size and season. We're ready. Lucas found her in the nursery at midnight, reorganizing the closet for the third time. Victoria, love, the closet is fine, the bottles are fine, everything is fine. Come to bed. But what if we need something and can't find it? What if she needs a specific outfit and we don't know where it is? What if... Then we'll deal with it in the moment, like every other parent in history. Lucas gently pulled her away from the closet. This isn't about preparation. This is about control. You're trying to control the uncontrollable. Victoria felt tears spring to her eyes. These damn hormones combined with anxiety made her constantly emotional. I'm scared. Every time I slow down enough to think about actually having her, about being responsible for a whole person, I panic. I know, I was terrified when Emily was born. Maria was so sick and I knew I'd be doing most of the parenting, and I had no idea what I was doing. I organized everything too, convinced that if I just had enough supplies and the right schedule, I could control the chaos. Lucas led her to the rocking chair, settling her in his lap despite her pregnant belly making it awkward. Want to know what actually helped? What? Accepting that I couldn't control it. That babies are inherently chaotic and unpredictable, and that all the organization in the world wouldn't change that. What mattered was showing up, being present, and adapting to what Emily actually needed, rather than what I'd planned for. Victoria leaned against him, feeling Sophia shift inside her. I don't know how to not plan. Planning is how I've succeeded at everything. You plan the things you can control, your career, your projects, your professional reputation. But Sophia isn't a project. She's a person who's going to have her own needs and timeline and personality. You can't architect her into existence. You just have to meet her where she is. That's terrifying. It is. But it's also kind of wonderful, watching them become who they're meant to be. Lucas kissed her forehead. You're going to be great at this. Not because you're perfect or have everything planned, but because you care enough to be scared. That matters more than any amount of organization. 2 weeks later, at 38 weeks and 3 days, Victoria's water broke during a family dinner. One moment she was arguing with Emily about whether vegetables were negotiable. The next she was standing in a puddle in her kitchen, staring at Lucas with wide eyes. That's not supposed to happen yet, she said, her voice oddly calm. I have 2 more weeks. The birth plan says... Sophia apparently didn't read the birth plan, Lucas said, already moving into crisis management mode. Emily, go get your overnight bag from your room. Victoria, sit down. I'm calling the hospital. The next several hours blurred into a sequence of controlled chaos. The drive to the hospital, Emily being picked up by Rachel, the admission process, the labor and delivery room that smelled like antiseptic and fear. Victoria's carefully constructed birth plan went out the window within the first hour, when complications required monitoring and interventions she'd specifically wanted to avoid. I wanted to do this naturally, she said through gritted teeth during a contraction. No epidural, no interventions, just plans change, Lucas said gently, holding her hand. What matters is getting her here safely. Victoria wanted to argue, to insist on control, to maintain the vision she'd constructed of how this should go. But another contraction hit, and suddenly control felt less important than just getting through this. She took the epidural. She accepted the interventions. She let go of the plan and focused on the moment, on Lucas's steady presence, on the doctor's calm professionalism, on the overwhelming physical reality of bringing a person into the world. Sophia Rose Reed Hale was born at 2:47 a.m., 7 pounds 3 ounces, with her father's dark hair and her mother's apparent stubbornness. She came out screaming, tiny and furious and absolutely perfect. When the nurses placed her on Victoria's chest, still covered in vernix and blood and the evidence of birth, Victoria felt something crack open in her chest, something that had been locked away for so long she'd forgotten it existed. She's here, Victoria whispered, tears streaming down her face. She's actually here. Lucas was crying too, his hand gentle on Sophia's tiny back. She's perfect. You're perfect. You did it. We did it, Victoria corrected, because this wasn't something she'd done alone. None of it was. Emily met her sister 6 hours later, Rachel bringing her to the hospital before school. The 5-year-old approached the hospital bed with uncharacteristic caution, her eyes wide as she stared at the tiny bundle in Victoria's arms. "She's so small," Emily whispered. "Is she okay?" "She's perfect," Victoria assured her. "Want to hold her?" Emily climbed carefully onto the bed, and Lucas helped position Sophia in her arms, supporting the baby's head. Emily stared down at her sister with an expression of pure wonder. "Hi, Sophia," Emily said softly. "I'm your big sister, Emily. I've been waiting for you for so long. I'm going to teach you everything I know, and I'm going to protect you from bad dreams, and we're going to be best friends forever, okay?" Sophia made a small sound, her tiny hand wrapping around Emily's finger. "She likes me," Emily announced, delighted. "Did you see that? She grabbed my finger. That means we're bonded now. That's how sister bonding works." Victoria met Lucas's eyes over their daughters' heads, and the look they shared said everything words couldn't: gratitude, love, wonder at what they'd created together. The first weeks at home were exactly as chaotic as everyone had warned. Sophia had strong opinions about sleeping, eating, and everything else, expressing them through lung power that seemed impossible for someone so tiny. Victoria's carefully organized systems fell apart immediately as they adapted to the reality of a newborn's demands. The bottles got used without regard for size sorting. The clothes were grabbed from wherever was closest during 3 a.m. diaper changes. The schedule Victoria had created was abandoned in favor of feeding on demand and sleeping whenever Sophia allowed. It should have made Victoria anxious. Instead, she found herself adapting, learning to read Sophia's cues instead of relying on predetermined plans. Lucas had been right. You couldn't architect a baby into compliance. You just had to meet them where they were. Emily took her role as big sister with impressive seriousness, helping with diaper changes, singing to Sophia when she cried, and providing running commentary on everything the baby did. "She smiled at me," Emily would announce triumphantly, even though the pediatrician had explained that newborn smiles were just gas. "She's trying to talk," Emily insisted when Sophia made random sounds. "She knows I'm her sister," Emily declared when Sophia stopped crying at the sound of her voice. Victoria returned to work after 12 weeks, but it was different now. She worked from home 2 days a week, left the office at reasonable hours, and stopped checking email after 9 p.m. Lucas covered the projects she couldn't, and she covered his when Sophia or Emily needed him. They moved through their days as partners in every sense, balancing work and family with the kind of teamwork Victoria had never imagined possible. The gossip had faded, as Patricia predicted. The firm was thriving under their joint leadership. The Morrison Building had won an International Sustainability Award, and new clients were specifically requesting Lucas's innovative design approach. Gerald Morrison remained skeptical, but his influence on the board had waned after his predictions of disaster failed to materialize. At the 6-month board review, even he had to admit the partnership restructure had been successful. "Revenue is up 18%, Patricia reported, reviewing the quarterly numbers. "Client satisfaction is at an all-time high. We've won 3 major awards and attracted talent from our competitors. Whatever concerns existed about the leadership transition, the results speak for themselves." After the meeting, James Morrison pulled Victoria aside. He was officially retired now, spending his days traveling with his wife, but he still came to major board meetings. "I'm proud of you," he said simply, "of what you've built here. Your father would be proud too." Victoria's throat tightened. "I don't know about that. I broke almost every rule he believed in." "Exactly. He was brilliant but rigid, unwilling to adapt, to show vulnerability, to admit he needed help. You learned from his mistakes. You built something better by being willing to be human." James smiled. "You have a good partner in Lucas. Good family. Good life. That's not weakness. That's wisdom." On Sophia's first birthday, they threw a party in the backyard of the house that had transformed from empty construction site to lived-in home. Emily had helped plan everything, insisting on a fairy tale castle theme with purple decorations and a cake shaped like a tower. Victoria watched Sophia demolish her smash cake with focused intensity, while Emily provided enthusiastic encouragement. Lucas stood beside her, his arm around her waist, equally entertained by their daughter's antics. "We did good," he said quietly. "We did," Victoria agreed. "Despite my best efforts to control everything and your insistence on spontaneity, we actually did good." Speaking of spontaneity, Lucas turned to face her fully, suddenly nervous in a way she rarely saw. "There's something I've been meaning to ask you." Before Victoria could respond, he was kneeling, right there in their backyard, surrounded by purple streamers and fairy lights, with chocolate cake smeared on Sophia's face and Emily's delighted gasp cutting through the party noise. "Victoria Hale," Lucas said, pulling a small box from his pocket. "We've built a life together, a family, a partnership, a home. We've faced gossip and board meetings and 3 a.m. feeding sessions. We've learned to compromise and communicate and occasionally agree to disagree about the appropriate level of organization for baby supplies. I love you. I love our life. And I want to make it official in every possible way. Will you marry me?" Victoria looked down at him, this man who'd seen past her armor, who'd chosen her despite complications, who taught her that vulnerability wasn't weakness and that control wasn't strength. She thought about the woman she'd been a year and a half ago, standing in her office bathroom staring at a positive pregnancy test, terrified of everything this moment represented. That woman had been powerful but alone, successful but isolated, in control but never truly free. This woman, standing in a messy backyard at her daughter's birthday party, surrounded by family and friends, with cake on her shoes and love in her chest, this woman had learned a different kind of power. "Yes," Victoria said, laughing and crying simultaneously. "Yes, I'll marry you. Obviously I'll marry you. I thought you'd never actually ask." Lucas stood, sliding the ring onto her finger, a simple band with a small diamond, elegant and understated, exactly what she would have chosen. Emily launched herself at both of them, screaming about weddings and dresses, and whether she could be a flower girl. Sophia, oblivious to the significance, continued eating cake with single-minded determination. Rachel and Lucas's parents started crying. The party guests applauded. Victoria kissed her fiancé, her partner, her co-parent, her equal in every way that mattered, and felt something settle in her chest. Not contentment exactly, because their life would never be calm enough for that, but certainty. The certainty that she'd made the right choice in choosing courage over control, in building a life that was messy and imperfect and absolutely right. 6 months later, they married in a small ceremony in the same backyard where Lucas had proposed. Emily served as flower girl and Sophia as honorary ring bearer, though at 18 months old, her main contribution was trying to eat the flowers and charming everyone with her smile. Victoria wore a simple dress that accommodated the fact that she was, surprise, 8 weeks pregnant again. This pregnancy had been planned, discussed, wanted by both of them. But the positive test had still made her cry, still made her grateful for the life she'd built, for the family that kept growing and changing and demanding more of her than professional excellence ever had. "Ready?" Lucas asked, waiting at the makeshift altar in their garden. Victoria looked around at the gathered crowd, her team from the firm, Lucas's family who'd become hers, Emily practicing her flower petal throwing technique, Sophia trying to escape Rachel's arms to investigate the decorations. She thought about the journey from that terrified woman in her office bathroom to this moment, about everything she'd learned about strength and vulnerability and the courage it took to build a life that mattered. "I'm ready," she said, and she meant it. The ceremony was short, personal, full of laughter when Sophia shrieked at exactly the wrong moment and Emily's flower petals hit Lucas in the face. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promises about partnership and patience, about showing up and trying, about loving each other through the chaos of building a life together. When they kissed, Emily cheered and Sophia clapped, and Victoria felt the weight of every choice that had led to this moment. The fear, the vulnerability, the leap of faith it took to let someone in. She'd spent 12 years building a reputation as the youngest, most successful CEO in Chicago architecture. She'd designed buildings that would outlast her, created structures that would define the skyline for generations. But standing in her backyard with her husband's arms around her, her daughters laughing, her family celebrating, Victoria understood that her greatest creation wasn't any building she'd designed. It was this messy, imperfect, beautiful family built on trust and courage, and the willingness to be vulnerable with the right person. Power, she'd learned, wasn't about control. It was about choosing love even when it was terrifying. It was about building partnerships that made you stronger together than you ever were alone. It was about showing up for the people who mattered, even when it meant sacrificing the armor you'd worn for protection. Victoria Hale had spent her career mastering the architecture of buildings, but it took Lucas Reed two beautiful daughters and a willingness to be human to teach her the architecture of love. And in the end, that was the structure that mattered most. Years later, when Sophia asked about how her parents met, Emily would tell the story with dramatic flair about a retreat and a fire and true love conquering all obstacles. Lucas would add details about Victoria's initial resistance and their professional complications, but Victoria would always end the story the same way. "We chose each other," she'd say simply, "even when it was hard, even when it complicated everything. We chose courage over control, partnership over perfection, and love over fear. And that made all the difference." Because in the end, the best structures, whether buildings or families, were the ones built on solid foundations of trust, maintained with consistent care, and strengthened by the courage to be vulnerable with the people who mattered most. Victoria had spent her life learning to design buildings, but Lucas and their daughters had taught her something more important: how to design a life worth living. And that was the greatest architecture of all.